Sure.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
7:30, OTB AM. You're very welcome along. I'm here. Owen is there. How are you, Owen?
How are you, Adrian? Good morning.
Just when you had us in, then you disappear out of the studio again, just like that, Owen.
Yes, indeed. It's elusive, I think, is the phrase.
Elusive is definitely something I would apply to. You're in Kerry, deepest, darkest Kerry.
Yeah. If you want to get down for a weekend now and you want to save petrol, you got to drive slowly, according to Eamon Ryan. So that's why I set out a day early than I usually would.
I didn't see that. That's up there with his lettuce. Grow your lettuce on your window ledge.
Apparently, it's true. Apparently, it is true that if you do drive slower, you do save petrol. That I've heard people. This is just anecdotal evidence that they would set the cruise control at 110 kilometers per hour on the motorway because that's the sweet spot. Going any faster than that, you may burn extra fuel. So these are all the tips that you need nowadays.
Other driving recommendations coming your way after 8 o'clock this morning. It's the perfect access point for Kerry, where you're at, for Tralee and Killarney. Am I right? Sort of halfway?
Yeah, slap bang in the middle.
And what games in Tralee this weekend?
It is.
What's your... I mean, the obvious answer is Killarney, right? But what's the real answer behind that in terms of going to games? Have you a favourite between the two, or?
Well, they're very different. Tralee spells cold, winterish nights in February and March where you can have these incredible atmospheres on a Saturday night where Dublin come down and Mayo come down and the games are invariably brilliant despite the conditions. Killarney spells July, Cork are in town, you do have 30,000 people milling around Lewis Road and there's unbelievable festival feeling in the middle of summer. We haven't really got that in Championship ever until 2019 really, when Mayo got the Cork experience coming down and getting to contribute to a sold out 30-something thousand capacity stadium at the time. So they're very different things. One spells winter, one spells summer, and thankfully the summer theme isn't just involving one county now. That will change as we go into Proposal Green, I guess, next year, and hopefully further changes down the line.
Is there always a way to bring it back to proposals? Is there a tension between the two of them, or in terms of getting games, or is it just a case of Tralee, we'll fire you a couple of games and you'll be happy with it?
No, there definitely is, but Tralee is a much smaller ground and it just makes sense for these games to be played there. There's a far better atmosphere. The crowd that'll be in Tralee tomorrow night will get lost in Killarney if the game is moved there. If it was a Sunday game, though, the game would be played in Killarney, like they played the Sunday game there against Donegal a few weeks ago. They'll be playing Tyrone in Killarney in a few weeks' time, and Killarney does tend to get a couple of league games, but the biggest ones, I guess this is to do with television rights as well, tend to go to Tralee because it's a Saturday night game, and there are no floodlights in Killarney. So that's the key point here, actually, that if the game is under lights, it has to be played in Tralee.
That's unusual,
although it has got the occasional Sunday afternoon game in the league.
You would think a county ground at a county the significance of Kerry would be able to do that.
That's a political minefield now that I'm actually just not equipped to take it into. The
Right.
county board don't actually own the ground, and I'm not sure, do they necessarily want to put floodlights in there because of the fact that there is floodlights in the ground that they do own.
Yeah. And they might not. They've been there for 150 years, but you don't know what happens in the next couple of years. Is that the thinking?
Possibly. I don't know. It does confuse people that there is no lights in Killarney. And one time actually, the 2015 Munster final replay, I think despite it being in the middle of summer, the replay almost got caught in darkness. Because it was, I think, a 5 o'clock throw-in, and it was a very grey evening. And I remember I think we actually had the game live on radio that night, and I can remember maybe Dave McIntyre was commentating, and it was just we're struggling to see what's going on here. So they almost did get caught once with the lack of floodlights, even though the game was obviously happening in the middle of the summer.
Speaking of political minefields, Fergus Keogh on YouTube has just strapped in a question here. He says, so, Owen is in Fareham 4. Well, I mean, Fergus, that is an ecumenical matter, right?
Thankfully, it's such a metropolis that it doesn't really narrow it down too much.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And also, it's weird because the club is in Fareham 4 that right? And then it's just bizarre. The whole thing is, you wouldn't. We dedicated a half hour to this last year. I'm still none the wiser about what the hell the club ground for that parish is doing in an entirely different parish. Makes no sense at all.
The thing that makes no sense to me is how we didn't win some sort of award for that half an hour of chat that time. That was really good quality stuff.
Come here. What is there a bit of a like? I don't do your usual thing now of playing this down, but is there a bit of a buzz building, like the Monaghan game and the few players coming in and like the gentle easing into the business end of the season? Is there a bit of a buzz sounds like I'm trying to overhype what's going on, but is the chatter beginning to build up a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's been a buzz for the last few years, to be fair. Like, I think most people who paid attention last year will know that there was a lot of buzz last year. There was probably a bit of buzz the year before and the year before that. So I think every year since the start of 2019, there's been hype. No question about it.
This is like talking to somebody who's actually involved in the inside. Listen, there's always a buzz around Kerry, and
there literally is. Like, I mean, what else are you expecting me to say? Like, I mean, why do you think that it's different this year? Come on, give me the evidence for why it's different this year.
In the sense that there's a renewed optimism for most counties, right? Given the landscape has really flattened out, and particularly from a Kerry point of view, you've a few debuts the other weekend. Monaghan are one of those teams that are been spoken about, obviously, as, I mean, I don't know how realistic it is, but they're certainly in the conversation about being in the mix to win in All-Ireland. So yeah, like that sort of stuff. Like there's always this disparity that I constantly go back to in our conversations about GAA for the haves and the have-nots. If a team like the likes of where I'm from, or the vast majority of other teams, are on the back of putting together a run of a few games, the buzz tends to get going pretty quickly. Now, it gets burst pretty quickly as well, but yeah, just from that basis, really.
But that's exactly my point. Look at their form at that time of the year over the last few years, and look at the fact that it is Kerry, the most successful county in Gaelic football history. Nobody really, unless they were maybe talking to you in kind of overtures, would suggest that they weren't a contender at the start of the year for the last few years. Even when Dublin were at their best, Kerry would have felt that they were a contender. I'd say Mayo people probably felt the same way after they came close a couple of times. There was none of this notion of, we have to bow down to the greatest team of all time. There's going to be no chance of this team winning an All-Ireland. Of course there is. There's a quiet confidence every single year, and the buzz is massive this year, and it has been ever since the likes of David Clifford and Sean O'Shea have come through. It was like, right, this is the end of the transition. Once this team comes good, or once this team matures, they will hopefully win a good few trophies, and that hasn't happened yet. So I think that this year they're probably ready to do so. But like, being ready and actually doing it are two different things entirely. There's like it's by a distance the biggest sport here. Like, it is the only thing people will talk about. It'll be the only thing people will be talking about for the next 72 hours. And once the championship kicks into gear, it'll go to a whole other level. Like, listen to James Donoghue on the football pod. He was saying that he can somehow get away with it in Killarney, but he feels sorry for the lads out in West Kerry who are just completely engulfed in it come the summertime. It will be all people are talking about. So I'm not yarrowing it away. I'm just saying it is literally a fanatical relationship that exists all the time, regardless of how much the bookies favour them or not.
Yeah, and on that note, like Mayo coming to town, I was looking at the odds last night. Tyrone are surprisingly either third or fourth favourite, something like that, which took me by surprise a little bit, I have to say. But both of them, like these are the real contenders, obviously, that everybody's speaking about. It gives an extra level of significance, does it, to the game tomorrow night?
I definitely think so. I think that there is, we can get way ahead of ourselves right now, and I fully expect to look completely stupid later on in the year, but this has the potential to be the first of a trilogy. And we actually did, in fairness, have that conversation with Colin Boyle yesterday in the show, where it could be here on Saturday, it could be Dublin at the start of April, and it could be Dublin again in the summertime for these two teams to meet. So it could be a double Croke Park matchup after Saturday. So there is a feeling that these two teams, because they're on opposite sides of the All-Ireland draw, could be the All-Ireland finalists as well this year. Everybody in Ulster is like, what are you talking about? Because they've got such a collection of great teams who come through. And there's probably a few diehard Dublin fans who think that there is a blue wave coming this year. But if I had to call it now, and I accept it, I would look stupid because I never get anything right. If I had to call it now, I think that we might be seeing a preview of an All-Ireland final on Saturday.
All right. Wow.
Cue it, Tyrone Dublin final, everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think the Tyrone part of that you certainly couldn't write out. I mean, Dublin would be Spartan, wouldn't it? I mean, I don't think that's on anybody's radar necessarily. The Mayo bit is as another one that's sort of not quite come out of nowhere, but like suddenly they're very live contenders. We'll have the quick picks coming up in a little bit, and we'll chat a bit about that in a bit more detail. The other thing, obviously, it's the weekend of an Ireland-England game, which is just an incredible thing. And I have to say, having been to a stack of games, covering matches at Twickenham Six Nations games, it's probably my favourite Six Nations experience to go out there. It's once you get off the train and the atmosphere that builds around the game, the hot dog sellers, the beer sellers, everybody packs the streets around. It's a little bit like going to the Aviva, and it's a little bit like being around there, in the sense that, like, when you're in the middle of London, people always say Six Nations gets lost in London or gets lost in Paris or whatever, but that's not really the case, because actually once you get off the train out there, it's the only thing. It's a sea of green, and there's a real, this is slightly bizarre, and I remember the first few games going over there, it definitely took me a little bit by surprise, but there is a real camaraderie as well between the fans. Like, there's obviously a really healthy rivalry, and particularly once you get inside the stadium, it tends to ramp up. But I remember being out there, I think it might have been was it 2004, after obviously England had been world champions, and I think that was the year that we beat them. Was that the Shane Horgan trying the corner? And been at that game and coming out afterwards, and the all you could hear was congratulations from the England fans. Now maybe they can do that when they've got the World Cup in their back pocket, and it doesn't really mean as much to them as it definitely meant to us that day. But it's a really special place to be on Six Nations weekend. I'm hugely envious of people who are headed over there this weekend, particularly in light of everything that's gone on over the last couple of years. But I was interested reading Clive Woodward's piece in the Irish Daily Mail this morning about what a missed opportunity England have had by not keeping Andy Farrell and Mike Catt involved in the game this weekend. And it struck me that the two people who want Ireland to win most at Twickenham this weekend are two Englishmen, and I'd probably add in a third on down in Limerick, watching on, because he was the third one of the other members of that coaching staff, obviously, in Graham Rowntree. So they'll be really I can easily see how, like, this is Woodward makes some good points about it being the fruition of Andy Farrell's labours over the last couple of years, and you know he's shed the cloak of Joe Schmidt at this stage well and truly, and it's his game plan and it's his team, and there's a good mix of the young and the old, but there'll be nobody, I don't think, more than the three of them wanting Ireland to win this weekend.
Like, it's a good point. They don't strike me as a particularly vindictive bunch. I will say that. It doesn't feel like Andy Farrell or Stuart Lancaster really are these sort of people who'll be licking their chops at the prospect of Ireland winning this weekend. It kind of feels like bygones are bygones, and they're happy enough to leave that in the past. But one thing you can't deny is that the past was pretty poisonous. And just kind of brushing up on some of the details this morning, Johnny Waterson was obviously at the post-mortem, I guess, with Andy Farrell after they got knocked out of the 2015 World Cup at home. I didn't quite realise how much of it was actually blamed on Andy Farrell. I really kind of saw Lancaster as the scapegoat, and Andy Farrell kind of, you know, as somebody in the backroom team, didn't really ship as much blame. But he was blamed quite a bit. There was an allegation that he really pushed for the Sam Burgess inclusion over Luther Burrell at the time. Like, I mean, I could not tell you that it was Luther Burrell who missed out in that squad for Sam Burgess. What a difference that would have made to that year's World Cup had Luther Burrell come in instead of Sam Burgess. But it was alleged that because, you know, his rugby league interest and background, it was him who brought Burgess into the team. And Burgess, if you wanted to pick one player who was scapegoated for that World Cup, he's your guy. And then, of course, there was a situation with Owen Farrell, and I can't believe this is even a thing, but there was some criticism over nepotism and Owen Farrell being in the out half position ahead of Tom Ford. And I mean, like he says, yeah, bringing, like, just to quote from the piece, bringing your son back for Wales, was there a conflict of interest there? He was then asked. Come on, answered Farrell. The equally adamant retort from the floor from a journalist was that Farrell would have to have a heart of stone to not have a conflict of interest. I think I've answered that, he says. The head coach makes the final decision, and that's that. It's like he shifted a lot of blame at that point. He obviously fronted up and took questions from rugby journalists after that point, and we all know what happened then, that they essentially all get exiles. And there have been these stories that pop up every so often about Lancaster getting lured back to England, or Farrell potentially doing the same. Nothing has ever been concrete, though, and I wonder if that was put in front of them in 2 years' time or whatever it may be, would they be tempted to go? I'm not sure if the wounds have healed that much.
What do you mean? What do you mean if they'd be tempted to go?
As in, if the RFU were like, we made a terrible mistake, you guys have really proved yourself over in the Emerald Isle, come back home. Because there have been obviously suggestions that might have been the case, but nothing concrete. And Stuart Lancaster, I think, has been asked about this multiple times in the past, and I don't think I think he's actually said that he never hasn't even been in contact with the RFU. But it's a natural leap when people start to get itchy feet about Eddie Jones, who would succeed Eddie Jones. And there's a couple of Englishmen doing a pretty good job, not too far from home.
I think that the point about missing. I think you can make this case for Lancaster, by the way, but it's a different conversation. I think there's definitely a case that, like, Farrell was 2 years into assistant at Saracens, Cat was 4 years into attack coach, I think, at London Irish. Roundtree had been at England for 7 years. Like, there was a definite case, and look at, like, selection issues notwithstanding, although the lunacy of whether Owen Farrell was nepotism is tells you more about the media over there, I suppose, than it does about Andy Farrell. They were young. They were young in their career. They were obviously operating under a different head coach. Like, it was definitely. I know that's obviously in hindsight that's all very easy. But at the time, it was they were probably responding to a lot of that media criticism. I actually think that it's inevitable on that they'll end up. And I don't mean that they'll want to win in Twickenham tomorrow from a. Sort of two fingers up to everybody point of view. It's more definitely in that kind of coming back, and you guys missed a trick with us, I think, in a very determined sort of a way, in a way that I think it's inevitable, and I wouldn't be in the slightest bit critical of them for it. It's inevitable that they end up they'll definitely end up back in the English game. It's nearly inevitable that they'll end up involved with England again down the track. Like, they're still two young men in terms of their coaching prowess. As you say, every game that goes by, every year that goes past, their stature is growing in the game, and I do think they will be sought after. And it's inevitable that they would want to go back to coach with England because that's where they're from, and it would be inevitable that they want to go and coach with England because there's unfinished business.
Yeah, I think you can never say never with this sort of thing. I don't see it happening in the short term. I'd be surprised if Eddie Jones was England head coach at the start of 2024, put it that way. I think that maybe is going to be an end of a World Cup cycle job with him, and then maybe they look for a clean break. And look, a lot of things can happen in the space of those 2 years to change things. I definitely think on the Lancaster side of things that there is this honesty about the fact that a lot of his family are in England, and I mean it's not ideal that he's not working there. But at the same time, I do think that there is a situation where he's got a real sense of purpose with Leinster, one of the European contenders, and he knows the pressures that top job in England brings. So I'm not convinced. I'm not sure if it's such a sure thing as you're painting there. And when it comes to Andy Farrell, I mean, he's basically Irish at this point, isn't he? I think that going home. What is going home to Andy Farrell? I mean, half his family is Irish at this point. So look, I'm not convinced, to be honest with you, that the return will happen. And we've got to accept that there is two sides to this coin as well. That the RFU, despite the evidence in front of their eyes, would they go back to the same ticket that supposedly wreaked havoc on their 2015 World Cup chances?
Yeah, I think yes is the answer to that, and we will see what happens on the track. But as you say, he's and they are Irish for now on, and if they win the World Cup, they can do whatever the hell they want after that. Even go back to England, God forbid. Now, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It's coming up on 10 to 8. Here's what's coming up on the show for you this morning between now and 10 a.m. We're going to get stuck into our GAA Quick Picks in a couple of moments' time. The lads on standby there. Alan Quinlan will give us a lot more detail on the Ireland selection for that game and what it means to play England as well. That's just after 8 this morning. Daniel Harris will join us. An interesting week in the world of football, of course, and lots of fallout in relation to Manchester United as well, so plenty to get stuck into there. London GAA, Aisling is over for the game this weekend, and she's been out training last night. One of the big stories really in the world of GAA over the last couple of months, so we'll get a bit of a sense of exactly what's going on behind the door there at London GAA for you a little later on. Johnny Courtenay, there's a new Republic of Ireland jersey launching this morning, and we've had a look at it and it looks good, and Johnny Courtenay is behind the company GAA, who are responsible for putting that jersey together, and we will get his thoughts on how it all comes together and what the early reaction is to it as well. We'll have a live crappy quiz. It's myself versus Ger versus Phil, I believe, and there's only one way that can go if it follows form, let's face it. And then Philippe Auclair, who was on the football show last night talking to the lads about the fallout of events at Chelsea, of course, and that is at 9:30 this morning. So that is what's lined up for you. Do keep the comments coming into us between now and 10 this morning. But right now, it's time for the GAA Quick Picks.
Some of these critics, these pundits,
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
They like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just dismiss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
All right, well, Tommy, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How you get on?
Morning, lads.
Tommy's excited. He's buzzing. Big one this weekend, Tommy.
Massive. Yeah. We're all set to go in Navan. Big game. Yeah. The only game that matters this weekend.
Up in Bruce Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Buzzing.
Yeah, you going yourself?
No. Let's. Have we got any? Have we got any sense of how this madness is going? Have we got any table of what the latest? Let's not linger too much on that. Owen's ahead and everything else we don't need to worry about. Right, on to the quick picks for this weekend. We're going to kick off with Armagh, Kildare, and listen, let's put it on the record. Kildare have done exceptionally well.
Oh, okay.
They've done exceptionally well. They've got exceptional players, haven't they? I mean, and a win in this game kills any relegation threat for them. And listen, let's just all accept that. And they might need it here, given some of the fixtures that are upcoming for them. But let's acknowledge that they've done exceptionally well and that they have a real check against Armagh. I'm giving them a real check. I'm going for Armagh. We're all going for Armagh, according to the graphic. And logic says Armagh, Tommy.
Logic does say Armagh, Adrian, but I've noticed a trend when I've gone back through the scores for the quick picks. You can see you're on 35% and I'm on 50-odd%. Anytime myself and yourself have gone against the grain and we've picked a different team than the others, it hasn't gone very well for us. So I think often
a grain of sand, Tommy, I don't mind saying.
Safety in numbers here, Adrian, is what I'm thinking. I feel like Armagh, not that they took the foot off the gas against Mayo last week, but they took a couple of chances. They played Ethan Rafferty in goals, who is a midfielder / half forward. That seemed to work. It was an interesting experiment by McGeaney, and it's probably an option for down the line if they needed it at any stage. They possibly should have beaten Mayo, but Mayo had taken a couple of chances to play a few kids that day as well. Frank Irwin got his debut. Sam Callanan, who's still in his leaving cert, started. He brought on some serious stars off the bench that day. Real strong footballers off the bench. It's noticeably a stronger Mayo team that we might get to in a minute. I just feel like on form, Armagh are flying. Kildare are doing really well. It's going to be a really good game, really competitive. I think Kildare might need to dig out a win from their last two games to be able to stay up here. I'm not sure they're going to get it above an Armagh. The Newbridge factor is massive for Kildare. And while you may have been a bit of a doubter, a few of us were calling Kildare to beat Dublin. I definitely was anyway, from very early on in Newbridge in the league this year. So Newbridge factor is massive. I think Armagh are winning this one.
Yeah,
you don't get extra points for calling it before the week of it, Tommy.
That's fair, Owen.
And also,
we might bring that rule in.
That was more. I would argue, and look, I've got the shovel out. Admittedly, that was more to do with Dublin than it was to do with Kildare. But that's just my view on it. Go on, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say you're talking about Andy Farrell and his kind of determination to prove England wrong this weekend. Is there going to be a similar sense with Kieran McGeaney this weekend, looking to prove Kildare wrong? You know, that fateful night where he lost his managerial role by a single vote. There might be a bit of that. But I think what's closer to home is that I think Kildare can look at Armagh and look at the one that got away and say to themselves, how do we learn from this? And I think that one of the big things that people can learn from what Kieran McGeaney has done so far at Armagh is how long it has taken him to get to this point. He is one of the longest serving managers in inter-county football. For a while it looked like they wouldn't be able to pick out a meaningful win at all, and now all of a sudden they're holding their own in Division 1. It has been slow progress, but it has been progress, and I think a lot of people know how quickly you can start going backwards in Gaelic games. So I think Kildare, they're onto a really good management ticket at the moment. There will probably be setbacks, but I think they can look at Armagh and say, listen, you kind of ride those out and you'd probably reach a higher plane over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, and just on that logic point, Will, finally on that one, Kildare are double the odds of Armagh to win the All Ireland, right? I mean, neither are going to win it, but I'm just trying to give a bit of context to the logic point.
Neither can win it. Just before Will jumps in there, Adrian, that's a dangerous line to throw out this year.
Hang on a second.
Adrian, that's dangerous.
I mean, I'll give you a little bit of a conversation about Armagh, but you're surely not talking about Kildare winning the All Ireland.
I'm not talking about Kildare, but Armagh are definitely in that mini group of bolters that could come from nowhere and do something this year. Because
they could, but I can't see them winning it.
I'm not saying they're going to win the All Ireland, Adrian, but didn't you say a few weeks ago that Longford definitely wouldn't beat Westmeath?
Move on, Will, move on. Next topic. I still have a stream of Longford people in my timeline that I need to get back to.
Right. It does feel like maybe the break came at a bad time for Kildare. They're one of the teams that would have probably fancied having a game straight off the back of beating Dublin and Newbridge. But look, we've had some very entertaining games with Armagh, particularly at home. Thinking back about that Armagh-Monaghan game a few weeks ago as well. So I'm hoping it's kind of somewhere in that realm that, you know, Kildare can really push them. Kildare have to take some heart as well from the fact that they went up to Omagh, albeit against a Tyrone team who were missing some of their frontline players, but still probably should have won that game as well. Just when we talk about, you know, the factor of Newbridge and how important home advantage is, you know, they've gone to the home of the All-Ireland champions and given them a right rattle this year already. I think, look, in fairness, Armagh didn't lose a whole lot in defeat last time out before the break, and they have, as Tommy said, been in really good form. They beat Dublin at Croke Park this year. They probably should have beaten Monaghan that night as well. And this will just... It's one of those things. Kildare are scrapping for their lives, and they're going to go up and give this a right good fight, but I think Armagh probably by 2 or 3 points.
Okay, Kerry, Mayo, let's see. What have we got? Podcast listeners, Tommy, Will and myself have gone for Kerry, and Owen has gone for Mayo.
Peak Yarra.
Not at all. So this one was going to be, I changed my prediction last minute. Joe Conroy, who puts our beautiful graphics together, will be able to tell you that. So I had this down as a tight one anyway. Kerry missing potentially half of their starting backs this weekend anyway. Paul Murphy, Dan Donahue, Gavin White probably not going to play. I still thought that even in that context, they would have had enough. But my sources say that there is going to be a big piece of team news before the ball is thrown in. And the piece of team news is so significant that it has swung the game in Mayo's favour in my eyes.
Hold on a second here, Owen. I'm planning to drive down to Tralee on Saturday to watch this game. Should I not bother going if David Clifford isn't going to be there?
I cannot comment.
I cannot confirm or deny. Blink twice, Owen. Blink twice if Clifford is not starting.
If it's David Clifford or Sean O'Shea, maybe just drop me a text early on Saturday to let
me know. Clifford. It's got to be Clifford, Tommy. He's not giving this build up. I mean, as good as Sean O'Shea is.
I will happily drop you a text after the show, Tommy. The reason why I don't want to say it now is because I don't want to poison the people of Ireland with fake news. I will happily fess up next week, even if I'm wrong, even if my information was wrong. But in the build-up to the game, I don't want to put it in the
I think given your insider trading, I think we should all be given a late opportunity to change our prediction based on your insider trading here, because I think that
you got to go do work, go do your journalism, go do your thinking yourself.
There is a big case for Mayo here. Like I was thinking, sort of regardless of that, but having touched on it a bit earlier on, Will, just with the players that are coming back in there, they've blooded some young players. Like they've been, I was going to say, quietly going about their business. The job that James Horan is doing there to put them in an even stronger position, keeping Oisin Mullen, the young players they've blooded. You look at the quality player that's coming back in for this weekend, like we're including the conversation about this weekend, but in the bigger picture, the job that's going on there quietly is puts them really in the frame, doesn't it, for later in the year?
Yeah, look, they're in the frame to qualify for a league final as well, particularly if they were to pick up a win on Saturday night. I'm a bit disappointed if Clifford is out, because I was looking forward to see who Mayo were going to detail on him, because Oisin Mullen is named to start as right wing back, I think, in the team that was released yesterday, and I was wondering if Mullen was going to pick Clifford up, but Owen has definitely heavily hinted to the fact that David Clifford won't be playing, and then Sean O'Shea won't.
Well, the two lads are texting about it there now.
Don't be rushing to the conclusion of what the news is, please, because if you're saying that you are suspected to be spreading fake information.
As in, please stop talking about David Clifford not playing. That's what you're saying. The two lads are texting each other there, Will. You can see the smiles in the eyes going. It's
no.
This clip is probably going to go horrifically wrong if it goes online now, and then David Clifford plays tomorrow.
I think rumours aside, I think the middle third is going to be a fascinating battle in this game. I think, as Adrian alluded to there, some players are back that you'd call heavy hitters. Aidan O'Shea is starting in centre forward. Diarmuid O'Connor is one of the most informed players in the country. He's been unbelievable the last couple of weeks. Ruan and Flynn it's going to be interesting to see how they get on in midfield against Kerry's duo. Who do you think is going to play in midfield? Is it going to be Jack Barry, Jim O'Connor? Is Adrian Spillane going to start as well on? You'd expecting a bigger unit than, we saw against Kildare. It was 3 lads around 5'8", 5'9" on that half forward line, and they suffered because of it. You can't imagine they do that again this weekend against Mayo.
No, they've completely changed it, haven't they? Adrian Spillane going into the half forward line and having what happened there was wasn't it the Nagale lads weren't available that week, so you had Spillane coming back to midfield. So yes, the 3 lads you mentioned there, they're all bankers to start at the moment. It'd be interesting to see how that actually forms once Gavin White is back, because I think that he could be an option in midfield, and obviously when David Moran is back. But that half forward line is bigger now. Adrian Spillane has been the sort of under the radar Kerry star of 2022 so far.
Shane on YouTube is wondering if I was the only person who picked Sligo against Cavan last week, and I'm pretty sure that was true. I got double yarrowed by the Sligo lads in the office.
But to be fair, I think the problem you had there was you didn't change your pick. I changed my pick.
Oh, after the fact?
That week off.
Oh, sorry,
the week off, the original fixture. I think you just got to reassess.
I like to form an opinion, Tommy, and stick with it no matter what, all prevailing factors thereafter. Tyrone Dublin, what have we got? Surely it's all the clean sweep, and it is. Very little case to be made for Dublin, Will, other than that there has to be a response at some point or another. I see Fitzmaurice was saying this week that if they could just fix... Now, he's saying if they could just fix their kickouts, everything would be just about right. And I see Kieran Whelan saying this morning, if they could just start to score a few goals, everything would be just about right. There's a lot of ifs.
Both reasonably fundamental points to the way that a team would play the game as well, Adrian. I think we'll sort out how we get primary possession from our own kick out and put the ball in the net. Look, obviously scoring and creating goal chances have been an issue throughout. Certainly plenty of, again, if we're in the realm of rumours, that McCarthy might actually start for Dublin this week, and also the speculation he might be their captain for this season. So obviously that would be a big boost. We're kind of waiting for McCarthy and Conn to come back into the team, and the feeling would be that when they come back in, this might just raise the level up a little bit, because those who've been around for a while have been struggling for form a little bit. That has been an issue in these first 4 games or so that we've seen from Dublin. You're kind of wondering when it will click. At the start of the year, we kind of wrote off the Armagh results to a certain extent and went, don't worry, it'll be fine. Then they'll go to Newbridge. Newbridge is going to inspire a performance out of them. And in fairness, they weren't actually that far. I know Tommy was at the game behind Kildare that day. I remember watching it in the studio. The Highland goal really was the difference maker when it came to the fixture itself. And we could be... Potentially, we might actually overwrite Dublin's demise a little bit here. That there is going to be a week when it will click, Adrian. And it could well be this time round. If Tyrone play like they did in the first half against Kildare and Dublin raise their level by a few percent, we're talking about this game being very tight this weekend. I can't go by the evidence that Dublin are just going to flick a switch, though, and actually come back to form straight away. It could still be a few more games and a couple of players coming back before they actually get back to that level again.
One thing on this, the goals is a massive factor. They should have had 3 goals against Kildare. There were nearly 3 freaks that the Kildare lads stopped those goals. There were 3 goal line chances. They should have had 1. So that's one to keep an eye on this weekend.
Down Offaly, we'll just rattle through this one. What way are we going? Down across the board, and it'll be tight. I think these last 2 are definitely going to be tight. And Meath Cork. Will, we're all gone Meath, and Will is... I'm seeing...
Adrian, it's worth watching out in this one. These Division 2 games, we've had draws already. Yeah. And remember that particularly these 2 games that we're trying to predict in Division 2 are actually relegation 4-pointers, where in all likelihood they're going to be incredibly close. On the Down Offaly game, Offaly scored 3-10 away from home against Galway last week, a Galway team who've been much vaunted and people have been talking about them going to Division 1. Offaly have gone for a defensive system, but showed a little bit on the counter-attack last week, which maybe wasn't there before. Probably should have beaten Meath, but for a controversial goal late in the game. So it's one of those. I think both of these games are going to be really, really scrappy. I think Down definitely come through against Offaly. It's no surprise we've gone across the board there. But Cork against Meath is going to be so, so close. I think there's value in a draw here, genuinely.
Tommy, last word.
I think there's a performance coming out of Meath. They're at home. They've got the Division 2 status on the table here. It's massive. I think there's going to be something coming out of Meath. I just think the home factor is so big when it comes to the league. I think Will is right. It's going to be very tight. And Meath, I take a draw, but I think there's going to be a win coming out of Meath this weekend.
Take a draw. Right. That's it for the quick picks.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
All right, it's 4 minutes past 8. You're watching OTB AM. We've packed show still to come here. We're going to be talking football with Daniel Harris very shortly. We're crossing over to Aisling O'Reilly, who's in London ahead of the rugby this weekend, but she's been out to the London GAA training last night. Up next, it's Quinlan on rugby.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The greatest league in the world is back.
Every Friday night after the League of Ireland games, a place for you to come to give your opinion to Vane. There's a little button down on the left-hand corner where you can say that you want to talk. And Johnny, you're just going to have to mute yourself because you're ruining it for everybody.
I can't. I'm still ruining it, am I?
You are,
yes.
We're
going to talk about Waterford FC now. Let's change to the real First Division now.
For immediate reaction from around the grounds, catch League of Ireland late night, Friday nights at 10 on Twitter Spaces. Follow @OffTheBall.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
5 past 8, time to talk rugby. Alan Quinlan, good morning.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Flying it. I went to look up your Twickenham record last night.
Yeah.
There wasn't one.
No, there isn't really. No.
I was surprised.
Yeah, I know. I never played against England there. Played with Munster there and played a charity match there. That's it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, is that am I right to say you only played England once in your career? According to the stats I looked at last night, you came off the bench, I think, in maybe 2003 Lansdowne.
That was the Grand Slam game. Yeah, that was it. I think. Yeah.
That's because it's I think that people have sort of maybe over the last 20 years, right, like moved into a more of a calm space when it comes to playing England. We still want to beat them, but we're not as sort of riled up. But would that have been a big regret for you?
Yeah, it would have. It would have, no doubt. I think it's probably a regret that I didn't play more for Ireland, not just against England. Obviously, it's something that you want to play in those big games in Twickenham and at home as well. You know, so they've always been a top side, and they're probably they're the biggest side that Ireland can play against. Bar, you know, they play the All Blacks. So the rivalry there is phenomenal, really, and England have always been the powerhouse, haven't they? Yeah, and we could see some of that again this weekend, of course, despite form lines maybe. Let's talk about Ireland, though, first of all. Like Peter O'Mahony obviously named Quinny. Some surprise maybe at his inclusion, and I'm sure Paul O'Connell had a big say in it. Is it as simple as a line-out operator and is going to, a lot of chat about ruck speed, is going to impact that in a big way, both in attack and defence? Yeah, I don't know if it's as simple as just his line-out ability. You mentioned Paul there. There's always reasons that sometimes people don't see, and coaches have hunches or they've seen stuff in training that's happening. And one of the areas that Ireland kind of struggled with was the line-out in Paris, and it wasn't just I think Ireland only lost 2 or 3 lineouts, but it was the manner and the ones they won. They weren't that clean and cohesive. And there's one thing about Peter O'Mahony: when he goes up in the lineout, he usually wins ball very, very clean from that middle to the back of the lineout, and that's where Ireland want to attack off, and it's the best place to kind of get ball off the top to launch an attack play. And but I think he's played very well this season for Munster. He's been superb right from the start of the season. His form has been really good. Andy Farrell has spoken about his leadership. So a little bit surprised by it because of Conan, Doris and Van der Fleer, the way they played so well together in November. But there's a big impact coming off the bench, and that will be needed in Twickenham. So having Conan, Henderson, Kilcoyne, Robbie Henshaw coming off the bench, that's what you want. You want that impact, and that's probably an area in the last couple of years that Ireland have struggled a little bit, particularly in the games over in Twickenham that we've lost. So I think he's obviously done enough in training to and in the Italian match to show that this is the way they want to go, and that breakdown as well. And I think he's historically in the last number of years he's caused problems for that English lineout. He's got at their ball, and I think that's probably, you know, one or two steals can change a match in a lineout. So that is his big strength. And at the breakdown, I think Courtnay obviously is, you know, probably his big strength is ball in hand in the wider channels. He's very quick and evasive in what he does. But O'Mahony has to have a big performance now because the coaches have backed him.
Is there any sense that the fact that it's in Twickenham, like if it was a horses for courses selection, let's say the game was in Dublin, would you expect Conan to play?
Not necessarily. If you go back to 2017, as I said, when England came trying to win a championship, and Peter O'Mahony, I think it was Jamie Heaslip, pulled out, and O'Mahony ended up starting, and he terrorised the English line out and ended up getting picked on the lines on the back of it, captaining the lines. So not necessarily. I think there's probably food for thought on what they're doing. There's no guarantee that works out, but I just think he's world class in that lineup, and I really put a lot of stock in having really line out intelligence there from someone like Peter, who can get at their line out and frustrate them and stop their flow of their ball and steal a couple of balls. So there's every chance it could have happened if it was at home as well. He has a lot of leadership and he's delivered consistently for Ireland. Conan's probably a better ball carrier, gets the ball in his hands more often, which, you know, can be a negative if we're talking about ball carrying after the game, because you have to remember Ireland are down Andrew Porter and Ronan Kelleher as well, who were so prominent in carrying the ball in November for Ireland. So it's there's a little bit of risk there from a ball carrying point of view, but my view is it's down to really go after that England set piece line out and breakdown.
That question of physicality is going to be probably one of the first pieces of analysis after the game tomorrow. And Eddie Jones has been talking about it in the build-up to the game, obviously. He says that if you look at Ireland's record, they haven't played against South Africa since 2017. We played against South Africa last year and did well in those physical stakes, so we intend to really take it to them. He went on to say that Ireland haven't played a team like us before. They haven't played South Africa since 17. He said again, we play with a physicality that they haven't seen before, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do on Saturday. So is that true, Alan, that Ireland just haven't seen what England are going to bring tomorrow?
Well, we did beat them last year in the Six Nations, didn't we, in Dublin? So it's kind of he's clutching at straws there, I think. Of course it's relevant, that physicality, and you don't get that off every team, the same kind of aggression and power that you get from South Africa. But it's a bit of an insult on New Zealand as well in November, isn't it? They're an incredibly physical side, New Zealand, every time you play them. So maybe he's saying he's the England side that came to Dublin last year weren't a physical side, which bit of a contradiction, to be honest. But he's just trying to get it out there that England are going to go after Ireland physically. They've always done that historically. It doesn't matter. And they've had this kind of before last year's results. I think it was 4 losses we had, 2 in Twickenham, 3 in Twickenham and 1 in Dublin. One of them was a World Cup warm-up game, an Autumn Nations and a Six Nations game. And they were very, very dominant and stopped Ireland right on the gain line. And you go back to 2019, and that's where it kind of started, that bad run for Ireland after an incredible 2018. England came to Dublin and just smashed Ireland on the gain line and slowed their ball down, got in their faces. Ireland's box kicking game, they got loads of English players back around the chasers and the receiver, and just frustrated Ireland. Tactically, they were very good at doing that. So, you know, it is going to be a factor, that physicality. They are going to try and out-muscle Ireland. I think Otoje can be so devastating at times against teams, but that can be a weakness for him as well, because he gives away so many penalties. So Mathieu Reynal, the French referee, he's very, very strict. He's not afraid to give big calls away from home. They've got to make sure, Ireland themselves has got to make sure that they bring an intensity that's evident from the get-go. They've got to win that line out, get that scrum right, make that first big tackle, because in the last couple of times over in Twickenham, it's England have been imposing themselves, and it's not a surprise that Eddie Jones is saying that, and it'll be no surprise to the Irish players. And it is a small concern still. I wouldn't say a big concern. I think this team will be probably more capable of dealing with that, and they're in better shape. But it is still something that would concern and worry me, that physicality that Laws, Atoje, Genge, Sinclair, Tom Curry, these players can bring.
Like Andy Farrell, sorry, Adrian. Andy Farrell's response to that kind of conversation is really interesting as well. Like he was making the point that it becomes a trap. You fall into the trap of thinking we need to be more physical, and even if you bring more physicality, your performance level actually drops off.
Well, I think it's been intelligent as well about what they do. Ireland at times have kind of ran into brick walls off slow possession. It's down to the halfback, Gibson Park, his kicking game, Johnny Sexton's kicking game, Bundy Aki making those carries, getting over the gain line, trying to get into that pocket where Marcus Smith is, going after his channel, if you like, and Henry Slade. You just kind of have to be on the front foot. I think, can Ireland stop their maul and their scrum? Of course they can. But I think when Ireland maul themselves, they've got to be just that bit more aggressive and just energetic about what they're doing. And it's sometimes every team goes out to be physical and to try and impose themselves in rugby on, but for Ireland it's about rugby intelligence here and just doing the right thing, making good decisions and being really efficient, particularly around that breakdown. Not getting counter-rucked. Sometimes we talk about the physicality in Paris and the impact of a really big French side. Ireland were just a little bit lackluster at times, a little bit high in their application at the breakdown and got counter-rucked, particularly for that Cyril Boy try. So it's just being really aware of it. They won't vary away from their game plan or what they're trying to do. They'll know what they want to try and do this Saturday. But sometimes it's just about having that little bit of doggedness and being really, really determined to get a performance and being able to roll up the sleeves, and then you can play rugby. If England smash Ireland early on, the crowd will get behind them. That's really important that England or Ireland try and get on the front foot early, impose themselves, get an early score in the game and settle down, and then just try and play. There's absolutely no doubt on that this is going to be a physical game for Ireland. And there's still, probably those questions that Eddie Jones is raising. Can Ireland cope with that? Well, we'll know tomorrow. I think they're capable of it. Porter and Kelleher are out of the side that they're a loss. Those two guys are a loss. There's no doubt about that.
Clive Woodward has an interesting piece in the Mail this morning, Quinny, where he talks about Andy Farrell and the mistake, and Mike Catt, the mistake that the RFU made in 2015 by letting them go. How motivated are the two of them by going back here to... he talks about the strengths of the Farrell game that is now coming to fruition, post-Schmidt, the Wigan-style play almost that he's instilled with this Ireland team. How motivated will he be to go back to Twickenham and get the win?
Very motivated for obvious reasons, I think. But, that success and that kind of positive talk it can be cyclical sometimes. And, if you go back 14, 15 months ago, Andy Farrell, Mike Catt, these guys were under pressure here. So it happens when you're on a good run. Eddie Jones is under a fair bit of pressure. A lot of ex-players in England and Ireland are saying that Ireland are going to win this game. I'm very, very nervous about kind of buying into that. I think Ireland should be confident and should expect to go and win there, given the status of where their team is. But for Andy Farrell and Mike Catt, going back to your home country and trying to get a performance, I think it puts Ireland in a great position, maybe of challenging for the Six Nations next week. And mentally, the growth of this team, I think it would be really important. We've had many conversations about what happened the last time in 2018. It isn't the be-all and end-all, but I've said this before the start of the Six Nations. What's a positive return for Ireland? Well, winning the 3 home games and getting a result in either France or England. And we've lost the France game, only lost by 6 points. There was a lot of positives to come out of that, a lot of optimism to come out of when you analyse some of the mistakes. But I think this team needs a performance now tomorrow. Andy Farrell needs a performance. Mike Catt does. And the players themselves, just to really believe that they're on the right path and they're building, and a lot of the good work that they've done doesn't come undone.
Will they get the result?
I think so. I think it's going to be a very tough game. It mightn't be pretty, but I think they're certainly capable of doing that, and I would be confident that they can win there. There's one part of me then kind of says, well, it's going to be really difficult, but I just don't think this English team is as strong as the teams that have beaten Ireland in the last couple of years over there, and that's the reality. And I think this Irish team is probably playing better and attacking more and has more of a spring in its step.
In one word answer, Wales or France?
You'll say I'm stupid, but I'm going to go for Wales. I think France may just come unstuck. They're an incredibly good side, but I just think Wales, a couple of players back, Jonathan Davies back at 12, even though he hasn't been playing well. Navidi, I just think they may surprise a few people tonight.
Wow, that has whetted the appetite in a big way. Come on, enjoy the games over the weekend.
Cheers, thanks guys.
Alan Quinlan on the line there. That is certainly interesting, because I think that bucks the trend, I think, of largely the way most people are thinking about that game, particularly this weekend. But what a brilliant weekend the Six Nations rugby we have in store, apart from the Scotland-Italy match, of course, that nobody's going to bother too much about. 21 minutes past 8, you're watching OTB AM. We still have lots to come on the show for you this morning. We've plenty of comments coming in, including Owen in the last couple of minutes. Darragh O'Toole complimenting us all in our wine-coloured jumpers, which when Courtenay was on I hadn't appreciated. It was a full house.
Yeah,
nice
congratulations on your style choice.
Righto. Earlier in the week, the FAI confirmed that Stephen Kenny had signed a new contract. Nathan was out at Abbottstown and he caught up with him for a 15-minute chat. You can hear the full piece on the OTB Football podcast feed. Interesting stuff there. Here is Stephen Kenny on some of the Irish players that have been impressing so far this season.
You're going to be back here next week to announce the squad for the 2 friendlies. A couple of players that are generating a bit of noise. Jack Byrne, who said he had a text from you at the start of the season to give him a good boost and has had a good quality of performance in some of the Rovers games. And also Michael Obafemi, who is scoring goals, playing regularly in the championship. Those 2 players, are they in your thoughts, or what's the current status with them?
Listen, I think Jack, and it's great to see Jack, but people forget he's lost a complete year of football, and he's gone through a very serious back operation, and he's shown great tenacity and fortitude to endure that and get back playing. So he's only had a handful of games. Obviously, I've been at the President's Cup and the league game, both games against St. Pat's, so he's only had a handful of games, so it's soon in his rehabilitation. But nothing wrong with his quality of his passing last week. It's terrific. But Michael, Michael is it's no doubt 2 goals against Coventry were very impressive goals, and he's not really had a run of games at club level ever, a consecutive run of games between persistent hamstring injuries and just the level of competition at Southampton. So it's great that he's playing regularly, and that can only help him. And he seems to be enjoying his football.
There's no personal issue there, though, from his tweet when he wasn't included back in the day?
No, I mean, it's just a matter of Michael playing games, and he's starting to play now, and that's good.
Stephen Kenny in conversation with Nathan Murphy there after his brand new Republic of Ireland managerial contract was announced this week. It is 23 minutes past 8. You're with us here on OTB AM. Big weekend of Premier League action coming up. We've got Manchester United against Tottenham tomorrow at 5:30, probably the pick of the fixtures. Daniel Harris is with us. Daniel, good morning to you.
Hello.
We'll start with matters off the fields, which will probably impact on the field eventually. Chelsea Football Club, Abramovich getting sanctioned yesterday. A new dawn for football where I guess we can sleep easy at night knowing that everything is right in the world once again.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's a wake-up call for everyone, really, because it tells us what should have been known and what I'm sure a lot of people who were in a position to stop it from happening in the first place knew when he bought Chelsea in 2003. I mean, Abramovich is a bad lot. What the iteration of all the things he's done it's extremely damning that he is involved in an illegal invasion that's going to lead to the creation of 2 million refugees, God knows how many deaths. And that's who Abramovich is. And it's important that the people know, and it's important that football knows, because if you look at the impact of Abramovich on football, that's one thing. But if you look at the impact of Abramovich on the world, that is an entirely different thing. And it's not just Abramovich, is it, who is involved, very significantly webbed up in football, but is involved in some absolutely dreadful behaviour the rest of the time.
When you consider what the knock-on impact of this might be in the rest of the Premier League and the rest of English football, do you feel any sense of hope that this actually will be a watershed moment?
There's always hope, because there has to be. If there's no hope, then what else have we got? But it seems unlikely that, having waved through the Saudi takeover of Newcastle just a couple of months ago, they're suddenly going to say, well, actually, we're not having that anymore. They're not going to do that in Manchester City either. I mean, this is a Tory government. They're not about to start requisitioning private property in favour of the people, I don't think. I mean, in Tracy Crouch's review, there was something about a golden share that supporters would have that would give them the decision-making power, but no one's currently talking about that. And it may be that they're not talking about it because at the moment there's an illegal war going on. It may just be that, and we'll get to it, but it doesn't feel that that's the kind of thing that they're going to start making a big deal out of, but I might be wrong.
I think we had this conversation, or we touched on this conversation with you last week, Daniel, about the sense of fans taking back ownership of football. Just in the context of Chelsea alone, is there an opportunity for fans to finally get back control of a club that obviously they were almost happy to lose and happy to have a billionaire oligarch run the club for the last little while? But can this turn into a greater connection once again between Chelsea and its fans?
It's possible. I mean, the Chelsea Supporters Trust and Chelsea pitch owners are quite well-organised, long-standing bodies. I think it probably depends what they want to fight for. They may make a big deal out of the fact that Abramovich is no longer their owner. And I mean, I saw the opening post by the Chelsea Supporters Trust that pretty much said that it's not fair on the supporters because all this uncertainty. And ultimately, at this point, the supporters are not really the height of anyone's concern, nor should they be. Chelsea supporters have had, 20-odd years of ridiculous success as a consequence of absolutely revoltingly dirty money. So the fact that that's now come back to bite them, you have to, at some level, take the rough with the smooth. However, football supporters should not be placed in this position of having to be the moral arbiters of who should and shouldn't own their club, because it's not them who's in charge of actually making sure that happens. So in a sense, I feel for Chelsea supporters, but I'm not sure how many of them have really asked themselves any of the difficult questions about Abramovich. There's been no opposition to Abramovich. There's been no campaign to educate people about who Abramovich is. There's just been, my experience of it anyway, is just people waving notes about, singing about how rich they are, singing about how poor other people are, singing about Abramovich over the minute's silence for Ukraine, singing a minute's applause for Ukraine, singing about Abramovich last night when we've been told that he's involved in helping an illegal invasion take place. So at that level, it's not that easy to feel a great deal of sympathy with Chelsea supporters, but perhaps there are some who take a slightly more mature approach to this than my team gets to dance around with silver pots, therefore he is a hero.
It is the battle of the good guys on Sunday. It's Chelsea against Newcastle at 2 o'clock in the Premier League. It does feel a little bit insignificant talking about some of the other events in the football world, but if you can just bring it back to Wednesday night, Daniel, and this is in the Manchester United context, the Paris Saint-Germain collapse against Real Madrid. Feel free to put your United hat on. How much of it were you looking at Mauricio Pochettino saying to yourself, listen, I'm not sure about this guy as Manchester United manager, or is that a way too reactionary response to one game?
I mean, you can always look at things however you want to find them. And I honestly, I don't know about Pochettino. He did a really good job at Southampton. He did an unbelievable job at Tottenham. PSG, the players aren't quite right for him, I think. But at the same time, you do wonder if there was something very specific about the circumstances he found at Spurs, the players that he had, the way he interacted with them, that just kind of made him the right man to be in that place at that time. And we don't know that he'd be the right man in the right place at United. As far as the game itself went, they were playing pretty well till Donnarumma chucked one in. So you could exonerate him from blame for what went on there. But at the same time, they are top of the league in France, but there have been some really poor performances. So you could say that that's on him, or you could say, well, he doesn't have a squad that suits the way he wants to play football. And the players bottled that once he'd already sent them out onto the pitch. The bottom line is that no one knows for sure who the right next manager of United is. It could be him. And what I like about him is the fact that he's got the kind of personality, not just that consumes things, but that brings people together. And that is something that United need. And I definitely think he's got that. I see more of that in him than I see in Ten Hag. And more than that, probably than I see in Luis Enrique either, who's probably another decent candidate. But at the same time, you think, well, is he just not quite as good as Klopp and Guardiola in their generation? You're trying to find the best guy in the next generation that isn't him. No one knows the answer to this question. Various people have tried to answer this question various times since 2013, and they've got it judderingly wrong every time. And it's not science. If it was science, it would just be quite well, go and get this person. But there are very few sure things in football management, and the two that there are have been taken by Manchester City and Liverpool. So you have to find someone who is a gamble. And to me, I would always try and gamble on the person I thought had the highest upside rather than the person who felt least likely to be a failure.
Tied into that, obviously, is the man who's there at the minute. And I was watching back the Gary Neville, Micah Richards exchange on Sky last night, Daniel, and Gary Neville talking about the Ralph Rangnick has actually been on an information gathering mission, was his exact phrase at the minute, looking at structures and people at the club, and then in a way that he can pass that on to the next manager. If that is actually true, that is one of the worst decisions, surely, that in a litany of bad decisions that Manchester United have made, to make the manager the guy who's also effectively auditing the club.
I don't think so. I think that they basically, the board basically wrote off this season. Anything they could get out of this season was a bonus. And by sticking in someone who's going to be staying there, he was now in a great position to tell the next manager who's worth keeping and who isn't worth keeping, what the squad needs.
Sorry, Daniel, to interrupt you. Can I just say on that point, I mean, I could tell the club which players need to be kept and which don't. I don't need to be the manager of the club to do that.
Really? You think that your judgment is as good as the judgment of Ralph Rangnick, who's training with the players every day, who's interacting with the players every day, who's watching the team from the touchline, who has the background in football that he has? I mean, I don't know. I think that he knows more about football than I do. So putting him in that position is a better move than putting me in that position. And yeah, we can all go, well, Lingard's got to go, Martial's got to go. But it's also
isn't it that straightforward? Are we not complicating it? And I was obviously exaggerating the point to say that I could do it. The point being that he could do it without having to be the manager of the club.
Maybe, but if you parachute someone in, right? If someone comes in at the beginning of pre-season, they're going to want to look at the players. They're going to want to see the players in pre-season and see how they want to play and who they want to get rid of and who they want to keep. And maybe a particular player comes back and they impress in training or not. And having someone there gathering information beforehand who's going to be involved in the appointment of the next guy and who plays football in the way that the club has decided that they want to play, I don't see that that's I can see that it's a bit like having a supply teacher in terms of what happens between now and the end of the season, that the players probably don't think, well, this guy is going to control my future, even though he is going to be involved in that. They don't have to do what he says because they're now setting the pattern of, well, if you don't like this manager, it doesn't matter, there'll be another one along in a minute. And they're now setting that pattern. So I can see how that would be a downside, but I don't see that someone who's understands football on a pretty high technical level will be sitting there thinking, well, we need this kind of profile of midfielder to combine with the profile of midfielders that we've already got, because when we play, this is how we're going to play in the future. And I think that in order to make those judgments, someone who understands and who's a significant thinker about the game is quite useful.
Sorry, one more on it. Just if it is the case, right, that he is that bridge, he's that auditor, he's passing that information on, don't all managers, and like if Pochettino comes in, let's say hypothetically, don't all managers at that level pride themselves on the fact that I can come into that club and I can actually actively impact on the likes of Marcus Rashford, who's been entirely cut adrift from the Rangnick plans, but Pochettino comes in and says, actually, I can take that guy and I can make him world class again?
I think that would be in everyone's interests. I don't think that Rangnick was going to say, well, just hoof Rashford out there, because everyone knows that there's a player in there and there's something at the moment that isn't quite right. So I don't think that the next manager is going to come in and just be ordered what to do by Rangnick. And if the next bloke comes in and says, yeah, I've decided that Rashford's rubbish, get rid of him, without taking a look at him, that would be an alarm bell for me, because we know that Rashford's a player. I don't think it's that. I think it's being able to recommend, because you've already done your research, essentially, being able to recommend the players to keep, the players you want to stay, the profile of players that you want to replace the players that leave with, the profile of players that you want to sign, and then you're in a position to start researching those, to start setting up deals with those for the next guy to come in and say yes or no. Doesn't always work. David Moyes came in and didn't want Thiago. Van Gaal came in and Moyes had set up a deal for Toni Kroos. Van Gaal went and signed Ander Herrera instead. It doesn't always work like that. It hasn't worked like that for United, but I guess what you hope is the guy that you appoint to succeed Rangnick is someone with a similar vision of football to Rangnick, and then he's able to pass over the intel, but ultimately it will be the new guy who makes the decisions, and he'll stand or fall by those decisions that he makes. But having access to this intelligence from someone like Rangnick, who is respected in the world of football thinking and football tactics and is personable and straight and honest, I don't see that that's a bad thing.
If Rangnick is going to be involved in the appointment of the new manager and makes an educated piece of advice on behalf of the new manager, should he not be going to Amsterdam and going to Paris to talk to Ten Hag and talk to Pochettino and watch their teams play?
Yes. I mean, he's got quite a big job in terms of the season at the moment, and I don't know what the division of labour is in that aspect. I think that Ralph Rangnick suddenly turning up at Schiphol would not be the way that they would go about it, because we know how the press are and we know what would then happen.
Doesn't that prove the absurdity of the whole thing?
What's the absurdity, sorry?
The fact that this guy is currently manager of Manchester United and is already locked in an advisor role post that.
Why is that absurd?
Because, as I say, as you pointed out there, the way the media would go if he actually went and spoke to these guys, went and watched their training sessions, went and watched their matches, it would be completely unbecoming of a football manager, which he currently is.
Right, but who would it not be unbecoming? If suddenly Darren Fletcher and John Mertes turn up at Schiphol, it'd be the same thing. That when this is no different really to when any club appoints a manager. You gather as much intelligence on them as you can. You speak to people around them. You speak to them, and then you make a decision, and that'll be what's going on right now. And you can't criticise. I mean, you can criticise United for not having football people making football decisions. Now United have football people making football decisions. So how would you go about this? I'm confused.
No, I'm just making the point that this guy, if he is advisor for Manchester United, that makes perfect sense, and he can go in his less taxing role, and let's put it that way, as in day to day. You're not on the training ground, you're not coaching a team to manage Spurs this weekend, you're not playing midweek football. You can then be free to make a kind of a distant decision, a kind of a necessarily distant decision, to actually say, listen, I'm going to put in the work here to find a successor to the manager, whereas he might be a little bit bogged down with the day-to-day work, and I guess he's focused on Manchester United this weekend against Tottenham rather than worried about the succession plan to himself.
Yeah, that's right. But finding the next manager isn't just his job. It's partly his job, but it's mainly other people who are going to carry the can if it goes wrong are going to be Darren Fletcher and John Mertes. It's their job to find a new manager. Rangnick is part of that, but it won't be him that has responsibility because it's not him that has the final call. So yeah, he's preparing the team and he'll be feeding back saying this is what the team needs, and I'm sure he'll be giving his opinion. But in terms of actually going to find the guy, that won't be him.
When it comes to tomorrow night, then it's a half-life kickoff, as I mentioned, Manchester United against Tottenham. Do you think that the sort of tough love from Antonio Conte is beginning to work? Do you think that you're starting to see signs that this thing may actually last well into next season and beyond?
Maybe. I mean, Conte is an excellent manager and he's got some good players. The players that he bought seem to have settled in quite well. Kulusevski's doing well, Bentancur's doing well when he's played. And obviously he already had Harry Kane and Son. So that's the basis of something not bad. So we know that Conte is good, and we know that he's got good players. They got that brilliant result at City, which I think sort of seems to have inspired them. Then they got the perfect game last week against Everton, which is like kind of the game that everyone wants at the moment. And I think the United Spurs game will be a good game because if United play the way they played in the first half against City, then that will be a level that might see them go in front of Tottenham because they played pretty well. And that's the thing with this United team is they have good performances in them. The problem is their response to adversity, whether it's adversity at the beginning of the game when they got spooked before in the Atletico Madrid game and couldn't pass the ball to each other for the first 45 minutes or so, first 55 minutes or so, or when things go against them, like that happened against Burnley. They played really well against Burnley. They went ahead, then Burnley had 5 minutes of pressure. They scored, and United weren't in the game for 20 minutes. And we know that they're capable of that because we keep seeing it over and over again. So it really does depend. You don't know what's going to happen. And I think that is mainly reflective of the players rather than reflective of the manager, because we saw it a lot under Ole as well, where they wouldn't turn up in the first half and they managed to rescue themselves in the second half. This is a pre-existing thing, and it feels like this squad is going to need some reinforcement, not just with better players, but with strong characters too, because something needs to be done about the frequency of the collapses.
Yeah, and on that strong characters bit, the battle over the captaincy seems to have been one of the narratives over the last while, and one of those that's in the race for it took an unsanctioned, for reports are to believe, unsanctioned trip to Portugal that he's not going to be hauled over the coals about. And we don't know the context last weekend. Was he injured? Was he left out of the team and threw his toys out of the pram? Is he still good enough, despite all of his legacy and everything he is in terms of football? Is he still good enough to play for Manchester United?
Not at the moment. It's interesting and strange, actually, how the decline has gone, because bottom line is, if you said to me, was Ronaldo a bad signing? I would probably have to say, apart from if we take away the reasons that you wouldn't want to sign Ronaldo for nothing, reasons that have nothing to do with football. If you said to me, was Ronaldo a good signing? I think I'd probably ultimately say yes, because without him, United would be out of the Champions League now and wouldn't be preparing for a game against Atletico that they have a decent chance of winning, I think. And with him, they'd still be doing badly in the league. I don't think he'll be at United next season. I don't think we're going to see much of him playing for the rest of this season because he's been absolutely dreadful for the last couple of months. And now that even the finishing seems to have gone, he's of very limited use. The problem United have, obviously, is that they don't have Mason Greenwood. Marcus Rashford is no idea what's going on with him. They don't have Martial, and Cavani's never fit. So they're lacking strikers. But I think that the time has come to move on from Ronaldo, and I think that the manager knows that because he's playing terribly. Any other player would have been dropped quite some time ago, and he's not probably going to be around next season. So if you're looking at United now and they're hoping that they come fourth, they're hoping that they do something in Europe, but really, like, they need to try and be better than this next season. Seems unlikely Ronaldo is going to be part of that. The problem is the aggravation, the media attention, the fuss you get if you drop him. But my guess would be that last Sunday was a dropping, and I don't think we're going to see that much of him between now and the end of the season now. Right, well, that will be an interesting watch for sure, given his reaction to last weekend. Daniel Harris, thanks a million. See you, everyone. Bye. Have a good week.
Cheers. Daniel Harris on the line there to talk all things United, and Ralph Rangnick, and plenty of reaction to that conversation. Obviously, strongly held views on all sides about the incumbent. It's I don't know. I'm not buying it. I just think that I did rewatch the debate last night. I thought Gary Neville, who I would have, as everybody else on the planet who's ever watched a game of football, have strong views about how good he is. He's a brilliant pundit and has done wondrous things for watching football. But I just thought he was very dismissive of Micah Richards, who I thought was making really good points about the shambles that this has become. I think that I would, as you got from the tone of the debate, I would just disagree with Daniel's points about this being the right thing for Manchester United. In fact, you probably have a lot of players there at the minute who've, because he's doing such a bad job as a manager, have turned against Ralph Rangnick now. And he's the guy who's holding the keys to their future. This whole thing is just entirely illogical.
It is bonkers. There's not much form for this. It's like a person on the way to become a political advisor gets a job as Taoiseach, and that's their training to become a political advisor. It just seems cart before horse in every sense. And I think from what we've heard, he's going to do a brilliant job in his next role, but he doesn't seem to be doing an amazing job in this role. And I just wonder, is he eating into time with his role that he's going to have this summer by doing the job that he's doing now on a purely basic level? Now, in fairness, the other side to that debate, as we heard there, is that he's still figuring this whole thing out, and short-term pain for long-term Rangnick gain.
Oh, I don't know. You could argue that he's like the last person that should be reporting on this thing, given what he's doing. Like, the players are looking at this guy going, he's stinking the joint out. Look, players do that anyway, right? They're like, nothing to do with me, pal. This lad over here doesn't know what he's doing, and that's why I've become a terrible player who can't score goals. Players are going to do that anyway. But the context here is that he's now hanging around the club to go, yeah, we want to keep you, and no, we don't want. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's an awful mess. They're too far into it to actually do anything about it. It's the difficulty. The embarrassment of the ego, that would be the blow to the ego of the club of Manchester United. This would be if they were to somehow reverse out of this entire crazy situation. I think would be too much almost. It's gone too far. Like, they'll salvage some modicum of ego out of it, and they'll come out and puff out their chest and fix their shirt and say, no, listen, that all worked exactly like we had hope it would in a couple of years when Ronaldo was gone, and they've shuffled Rangnick off to be a scout in some far-flung area. And Pochettino is winning Champions Leagues, and they'll say, this has all worked exactly like we had planned. But we all will know. We'll all know.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of people who still hold hope for what might happen over the next little while. A big summer coming up.
Righto, time for the newspapers.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not,
yes.
No.
Now, pal, it's 8:45. It's Friday morning. Here's what's happening across the back pages and indeed on OTBSports.com for you this morning. Leading the way is the main story, obviously, in relation to Chelsea Football Club. I can't see how the club can survive. Philippe Auclair, football writer, was on with Nathan last night, and there is considered thoughts about concerning thoughts for the future of one of the world's biggest football clubs. He was one of my heroes, John Giles, paying tribute to Frank O'Farrell, who's passed away over the recent weeks. 3 requesting that their logo can be taken off Chelsea jerseys, and I noted that both men's and women's teams who were in action last night both still had it. I don't know, was it just that they couldn't get enough kit together, which would sort of surprise me, but that was the way it went last night. And then obviously plenty more up there, and plenty of build up to the rugby as well this weekend. That's what's happening on OTBSports.com for you this morning. Let's tell you what's happening across the back pages of the newspapers after that. The Irish Times to begin with here. Rugby all the way. Farrell pays no heed to Jones' mind games, is the story there. Is a picture of Peter O'Mahony in action from a couple of weeks ago. Bigger hopes to shut down DuPont and Intimac. Don't the world, Dan. Don't the world. And O'Mahony praises Farrell's great learning environment. And sure, why wouldn't he? He's in the 15 for the weekend. The Irish Independent. I was never worried. I had a clear vision, insists Stephen Kenny, who's just signed a new deal with the Republic of Ireland. Farrell dismissing intriguing mind games as Jones ups the ante, writes Rory O'Connor there. And Chelsea, Blues cruise, but off-field problems loom. Havertz and Mount after that 3-1 win over the mighty Norwich last night. Irish Daily Mail, take it to them. We will hunt Ireland down, vows Jones. And a picture of Chelsea showing Chelsea's show of strength on day of turmoil, they say inside in football there. And Kenny's new Ireland deal has an exit clause. Is it has an exit clause, writes Philip Quinn. That seems like an unusual angle on a very positive story, you think, that people feel generally about it. Roman Runes, Chelsea beating Norwich last night. Ireland can be stronger. Stephen Kenny admitting that Ireland must improve, writes Paul Lennon. And another positive day for Irish football with Stephen Kenny signing up. Duo on alert as Poch faces the axe as Manchester United swoop for a sacked manager, and Kelly Harrington saying that boxing can get back at the Olympics if we're all patient post its current exclusion for 2028. The Times of London, Chelsea's warning we could go bust. Abramovich sanctioned over links to Putin. It's a story inside by many of their senior writers, and stars rally with that win at Norwich. It's a theme that's also taken up on the Daily Telegraph this morning. Abramovich sanctions blow triggers a three-way fight to take over at Chelsea. And you think that's the quickest route out, isn't it? That they could get the club sold as quickly as possible and move on from there. Chelsea on the Mirror this morning, more reflections on that, including a story inside Connolly. The lack of goals is a real worry, was the thing that we touched on a bit earlier on. The Sun. And by the way, that Chelsea story is leading the way on most of the front and back pages, particularly of the Red Tops this morning. Kiss, Chelsea could do business on the pitch as Tuchel is happy to stay, and goodbye there. Roman has 81 days to save the club, and plenty more as well inside the paper this morning. That's the Sun, and they're really the story that's going on across the back pages for you this morning. It's 10 to 9 on this Friday morning. We still have a live crappy quiz coming your way a little bit later on. Ger is currently doing his stretches outside the studio, as is Phil, and then I'll be Paddy last, as we know, but we'll all that to come your way. Live crappy quiz in a few moments time, and a few other bits and pieces as well. But before all of that, we're going to cross to London next to chat to Aisling O'Reilly. She is covering England-Ireland at Twickenham for us tomorrow afternoon. Somehow has ended up at London GAA training session last night. Here's Aisling with the London boss, Michael Maher.
Michael Maher, the London GA manager. We're here in Grasshoppers Rugby Club, and this is where you train most evenings with the London Gaelic football team.
Yeah, this is our base midweek. It's a wonderful facility, as you can see. We've got an excellent 3G rugby pitch. We've access to the gym inside. Yeah, we do, yeah. No, we have to wait for 8 o'clock start on a Thursday because it's their juniors night. But no, it's a wonderful facility. We're delighted to be able to train here. The London Hurlers train here as well.
So this is the base. You don't have to sort of look around for other pitches. You get to come here each and every evening.
Yeah, this is us on a Tuesday and Thursday or Friday night, and then at the weekends we'd go to whatever football pitch is available. A few years ago we were on the grass pitches here and they got waterlogged, and we were like looking around for different pitches and training in 4 or 5 different places. So this year we said we'd stick with the 3G pitch here, and we were kind of guaranteed we'd be here every night, and it's been a huge reason in the consistency that we've had in performances this year.
And what does a typical week look like for a London GA player?
Boys will be in the gym Monday, so we've access to Harrow School gym on a Monday night, and then we'd be here on a Tuesday. If we're travelling at the weekend, we train on a Thursday night. If we're not travelling, we train on a Friday night. And then obviously this week, Saturday, Sunday, we'll be away from home and fly out from Stansted on Saturday and back on Sunday night. So kind of this week, the lads are giving 5 days of their week to London football, which is a huge commitment, but look, one which they're all delighted to be given at the moment.
And London is a very big place, so I'm getting to see that myself, trying to get Ubers here tonight. How does that work for the lads when they're coming from work? I'm sure they have their own lives, they have all different professions, they probably don't understand GA as well. How does all that work for getting here?
Yeah, look, it's very tough, and we as a management have to be very understanding. Like, one big thing here, there might be times when lads just can't get out of work on time to get to football because their employers don't know. Like, one of the lads tonight has got a school open evening. We'd like them here at 7 to be doing some work in the gym before coming on the field, but he's got an open evening. He's having to get an Uber to get to training for an 8 o'clock start. So small things like that, we just have to look, we manage it, and we understand it. I think that's the one big thing about us. So long as the players are honest and upfront with us, we understand it. But the travel is a huge thing. Like, for lads here to travel 25 miles can take 2.5 hours in rush hour sometimes. I think James Hines, who was on Off the Ball before that night he did the interview, he was actually late to training, so he got a bit of stick for that, but that just showed like he was delayed 10 minutes getting out of the office, and it took him the guts of 3 hours to get to training instead of what might have usually only been 2.5. So there is a lot of travel involved, but at the same time, look, it's a real privilege for each and every one of us to be involved with London, and you just accept it.
Yeah, Michael Maher talking to Aisling O'Reilly. Morning, Ash, how are you doing?
Morning, Adrian. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Was that Ruislip?
No, it wasn't. So it's Grasshoppers Rugby Club in Isleworth. So it's about an hour or so outside of London.
Okay, very good. And what's the, like, it's one of the stories, and it's a big reason why you were down there obviously last night, and obviously the little matter of the rugby tomorrow. It's one of the stories of the year and the GAA season. What was the Wexford loss burst the bubble a little bit, or is there still a lot of enthusiasm down there?
Oh, big time. Yeah, there's a really good buzz. Like, even speaking to Michael, like I asked him, like, what is the aim this year? Like, you've obviously got 3 wins now. Is it promotion? Like, what is it? And he's like, no, we're not looking past the next game. But you can really feel the buzz among the lads. Like, when I'm speaking to them, like, even I was speaking to one of the homegrown players, Sean Hickey, and he was just saying that, it's great to be winning. We never won with London. We won nothing. And he said, we're winning now. It's amazing. So you definitely can feel it. And there's something different happening this year. Like, anyone that I spoke to, they said the intensity of training is completely different, that they've never ever seen it to that intensity before. There's definitely something happening. It's really exciting and delighted for them, because they had a couple of tough years with COVID, and it halted everything. Michael only came in 2020. Everything was halted, but he stuck with them, and he's really changed things. And even the way they speak about him is really nice to see as well. So, it's in a good place, definitely.
Are there many out-and-out Londoners, or is it mainly expats?
No, well, I think that's the difference as well this year. They have 10 homegrown players on the panel, and there's more that are on. The junior team is actually completely homegrown, and some of those lads are filtering through. We could see them there as well last night, training away beside them, and they are filtering through the team. And then there's 10 that are on the panel at the moment. So he said it's never ever going to be completely homegrown. He says he doesn't see it to ever be like that in London, but that at the moment it's in a good place, that there is a certain number of them that are in there, and some of them are the best players. Like, I spoke with a lad from Down, Ronan Sloan. It's from Addy Call, and he said that the best players on the team are the London-born players, and they'd be lost without them. So yeah, it's in a really good state, and I think it's important that you have those homegrown players coming through.
Like, it's any exiled team it's slightly bizarre dynamic in the sense that, like, if you had any other county around the country that isn't one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 teams, where you've got 3 wins on the bounce, they have, who do they have? Leitrim, Carlow, Waterford accounted for. There'd be that uplift in interest, in participation, in chat about the team. Streets would be a buzz with it, local media would be a buzz with it. It's much harder in places like London or New York or Auckland, in that the buzz about it tends to exist within the camp to a degree.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't become as pervasive. It's hard to get that uplift. It's hard to have a legacy out of it, isn't it? Like, when it's that dynamic.
Yeah, that you mentioned that actually. Ronan Sloan from Down, he said to me that he was buzzing going into school. He's a teacher, and he was buzzing going in after they had 3 wins in a row, and he went in and he was expecting, people to be saying it to him, and he's like, we won 3 in a row, and they were like, oh yeah, you won a game, like they just didn't know what it meant. They hadn't a clue. He said that some of them don't actually would be even familiar with GAA. So he was like, yeah, I was completely brought straight back down to earth, like 1-0 sort of thing. But he said he doesn't care. Like, they were really thankful that I came there last night. They were like, it's great to be doing interviews and great to be getting the publicity sort of thing. But I think definitely there's a buzz here, like at home in Ireland for them. That's what I was trying to tell them. I was like, definitely people know about London GAA that never knew about London GAA. But over there, it's so many sports. Like, as you see, they're at a rugby ground last night, and there was so many different rugby teams there alongside them. So yeah, they don't get as much publicity for what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah, definitely one of the stories of the year so far, and I hope it continue a little bit. Who else did you catch up with last night?
Yeah, I spoke with kitman Phil Roach. He's originally from Wexford, and he's involved in the GAA out in London since 1967.
Phil Roach, a Wexford man, and you're the kit man here of London GAA. How long have you been involved here, Phil?
Since 1967, so I came over.
And how did you end up over in London?
I came over on a holiday and I ended up staying.
And you got involved with the London GAA?
I got involved with the Father Murphys first, all Wexford club that time. We were all Wexford. And then 20 years later, then we went to Open. We were all Wexford at one time, holding the football, everything.
And you obviously see a lot of players coming and going here in London.
I've seen a lot, but this is a great bunch of lads. We all enjoyed our 2013. We had we got the kind of final, first time ever. That was a terrific year. But the players we have now are past them. For 2 years, no games, and we come on then and we had great reports to the players and great turn up for players. I mean, it's very hard for London players. They leave the house in the morning at 6:30 and they go and do a day's work and they come back here 2-3 nights a week training, don't get home till 11 o'clock at night. So it is very difficult in London. But they've all told me we have 13 of the panel we had 2 years ago and we got another 20 all in. So very good panel, I think.
And this year you've had 3 wins so far.
3 wins. We're going well. We didn't expect to start off so great,
Yeah.
3 great wins. Good games. Only point or 2 winners.
Yeah, that is Aisling chatting to the London Kitman at training last night, and that it's just such an interesting journey. And we, as Aisling said a bit earlier, and it was a theme that was picked up in the football pod actually this week, just about that idea of profile and how important it is to players to be noticed for their achievements. And we definitely wanted to tip the cap to that. So good work on that, Aisling. And the full chat will be available up on the OTB GAA podcast feed and up on our YouTube channel as well. We have to talk about the other one, obviously, at the weekend. Were there many fans with the leprechaun hats on the plane yesterday?
There was 1 or 2, but not too many. I suppose because I came over on the Thursday, there wasn't as many. I'm coming out today around the city, so hopefully I will see a lot more. But even at the training last night, because it was a rugby club, there was a lot of Irish there. I heard a man, he was training the team, and I was like, that's definitely a Limerick accent. And I went over and was chatting to him, and they were all buzzing, for the game. And even some of his players, they're English-born players. Some of them have Irish parents, or some sort of maybe an Anna Grandad from Ireland, and they were all cheering for Ireland. They were like, we hope they beat them now. And I was like, geez, you not get a lot of stick now, going into school or whatever, that you're cheering for Ireland. They're like, yeah, we get stick until they win, and then it's all good. Yeah. So there was a great buzz amongst them. But I'm definitely going to go out around London today and meet some of the fans and supporters. So if anyone knows of the best places to go, definitely let me know, because it's a big place, which I'm gathering to see.
And you'll be out around Twickenham early tomorrow, soaking up the atmosphere, and
absolutely.
I was saying to the show earlier, it is definitely one of I think it's the best Six Nations experience, in the sense that Twickenham itself and the area around just tends to get totally overrun by people going to the game and chatting about the game.
Wow, that's what I was going to ask. Have you been? Because I obviously haven't, so I don't know what to expect. And when I went to Stade de France for the Paris for the France game, I was blown away of how big they done it and the atmosphere and all of that compared to the Aviva. To be honest, it was just another level. So you've obviously been to Twickenham, so it's unbelievable. Yeah,
we covered a load of games out there. I think the first one I was saying earlier on, I think the first one might have been the 2004 game, which was a sensational match to have been at all. Mm-hmm. Never mind your first Twickenham experience, and maybe that's positively coloured my experience of it. But it definitely is that thing, actually, where you go out and it's the second you step off the train, you'll see the fans as you start to come out of London, more and more fans with all the colours on them getting on the train as you get out, and by the time you get to Twickenham or whatever the local station is, you're off the train, and it's just everybody there is going to the match, and you're corralled across a couple of roundabouts and down the streets in towards the ground, and on the way down, the hot dog sellers are out in their front gardens, and the beer sellers and the hats and scarves, and there's only one thing on everybody's mind, and the whole experience of going in there, and the pomp of, it's the word that we associate with England generally, but the pomp that exists around Twickenham on match day down there, it is absolutely something special. You're going to love it.
I can't wait. I hope I have the same experience and we get the win, and it'll be a brilliant day altogether. But I hope we do. I'm quietly confident that this is our chance at Twickenham. We haven't got a great record, but I hope now with the form the lads are in, and a few changes, 6 changes in total to the start of 15. So it's exciting to see how they'll go. Yeah,
can't wait, and looking forward to your coverage across today and across the weekend as well. Aisling, thanks a million.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks a lot. Aisling O'Reilly on the line there from London ahead of the rugby tomorrow, and you can stay tuned to all of Aisling's coverage across our social channels and on radio as well this evening and again tomorrow. You're watching OTB AM. It's just gone 9 o'clock. It's Friday morning. We're brought to you by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It is 3 minutes past 9. We've a live crappy quiz coming your way in just a couple of moments time, so stand by for that. We're also going to talk about the new Ireland jersey that's been launched this morning, but as always on a Thursday night, John Giles was with Nathan last night talking football. Here he is on the state of things at Everton.
Jamie Carragher was extremely critical of the entire Everton defence, in particular Seamus Coleman, after the game on Monday night. He said they were, championship standard. Do you look at that back four for Everton and think actually quality wise they are championship standard?
Well, I watched the match, and I didn't think Seamus Coleman was any worse than anybody else. I mean, the goalkeeper had a terrible time. And he's a bit of a flipping headbanger. Every time that somebody makes a mistake, he has to make a save. He's up shouting at the defenders and all that, instead of getting on with the game. And he didn't do it. He didn't do his stuff for them the other night. He was not the only one. I mean, they were very poor. Spurs were good, but I don't think Spurs had to be that good to do what they did to Everton. So Frank has a big job there. There's no doubt, Nate.
It is 4 minutes past 9. That's John Giles. The full chat available from his conversation with Nathan last night. Just check out the OTB Football podcast feed, or indeed our YouTube channel as well. Like, share, comment on it when you're there, because that helps with the good stuff. Right, speaking of the good stuff, there's a new Republic of Ireland jersey being launched this morning. Jonathan Courtenay, as is becoming tradition now, Jonathan, on a Friday morning, and when these things happen, joins us from GAA Sports, who are behind this latest jersey. Morning to you, Johnny.
Morning, how's it going?
Good. I think we can give our viewers a look at a glimpse of what this new jersey looks like. We'll put that up on screen in a minute. Will you tell us a little bit? You can see it there now. Tell us a little bit about the story behind how it's come together.
Sure, yeah. Well, look, the way we looked at this kit cycle for kind of the home and away, and even the centenary jersey that we did last year, the blue one, everything was looked at through the lens of its CFAI centenary. So we wanted to do some authentic kind of things that related back to Ireland. Obviously, the blue was self-explanatory, and we've discussed that one before. First kit that we ever wore. We brought the orange back for the first time in 25 years as an integral part of the colour of the flag. And now for the 2022 home kit, the way we tried to look at it was, what can we do to do something kind of uniquely Irish? So the pattern in the jersey is effectively taken from the way you see the fields of Ireland when you fly in over the country. So we were kind of going, it's been 2 years, let's say, since people have probably been able to travel home. This was when we were starting the design process. It was kind of 2 years, people away from the stadium, and we wanted to incorporate that 40 shades of green piece alongside, I suppose, the unsymmetrical kind of shapes of the fields of Ireland. So there's nothing. It's not like when you fly in over Holland and you've rows and rows of flowers and it's all very straight and lined up. So we wanted to give that kind of broken feel to the whole aesthetic of the jersey. So that's kind of where it came from. And because of the way the jersey is now cut, every single jersey will be unique. So there's a one big overall pattern, but because you're cutting it into different sizes and embroidering, the badges and the Umbro logos and stuff in different places, every single jersey will actually be different, which is a first in terms of an Irish shirt.
That's great. And what I know we chatted to you the last time, but when you do shoots with the players and stuff, did you get a chance to get any feedback from the players on it?
We just the way the timings fell this time, we actually didn't do a shoot with the players. So, the jersey is launching in time for St. Patrick's Day, effectively, is what we've tried to do here. And there hasn't been an international match since last November, so there hasn't been a squad basically here in the Castleknock Hotel or whatever to try and get that done yet. So actually the jersey will be worn, the kit I should say, will be worn for the first time in that centenary, the official centenary game against Belgium in the Aviva in March, and then the women's team will wear it away to Sweden in the qualifier in April.
You mentioned the timeline over there. It's normally it's 15 months, right, since the last home jersey, but we would normally have something sort of once every 12 months.
It does vary. It depends on certain things, fixture cycles and bits and pieces like that. But generally speaking, you're not far off. Generally speaking, a home kit runs somewhere around 18 months, and the away kit will change every year. That's more or less in line with what everybody else does these days. It's kind of it's to be expected from an international kit rotation, if you like. We've obviously had one extra kit effectively in there recently, which was the blue kit. But I mean, that was obviously done for a very specific reason when you're celebrating the centenary.
The blue kit is going to haunt you for the rest of your life, in that people are going to be constantly saying, when is the blue kit coming back? Bring back the blue kit.
Yeah, we've certainly had a lot of that. I mean, people kind of bombard you on Twitter and stuff like that saying, oh, I missed out on it and blah, blah, blah. All I can say is, look, we kind of did plenty of advertising. We let everyone know that it was going to be a limited edition. And when it's limited, it's not really fair to the people who did go out and buy them to just run another, I think, batch, if you like. So that number, I think, it was 2,000 or so we did. And the lucky 2,000 who have them, and I don't think many will be letting them go at this point because they have already become a kind of collector's item if you can find one.
Run another batch is what the audience are saying this morning, Jack.
More or less.
I can predict the comments that are going to come in. Run another batch. And we were chatting before as well about, and I know that you were very bullish at that time talking about it, and why wouldn't you be? You've been designing, GAA Sports have been designing Ireland jerseys for donkey's years, so why wouldn't you be bullish about it? But at the same time, the sort of trepidation of looking at the FAI handle this morning to see what the public reaction is going to be.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think I've kind of alluded to this before. I don't think worrying about what people say online about a football shirt is what would get you up in the morning. It'd probably keep you in bed in the morning for anything else. But I was just thinking about it. I thought you might say something along those lines. I basically packed my daughter off to school, 8-year-old daughter off to school, wearing blue and yellow this morning. They're having a fundraiser for Ukraine. So I'm finding it hard to correlate worrying about a few online trolls' comments about a football jersey when there's a lot bigger things going on in the world, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll always have something to say about it. And it's a nice jersey. Were you worried in any way about, like, it's not, it's certainly not the same or anything like it as the rugby jersey that's in a same sort of design. Was there any concern about that, or is that just...
We obviously we were aware. I know the one you're talking about. There was an RFU jersey about 3 years ago ish. They kind of, now their pattern obviously, although on the face of it there's a bit of similarity. If you look at it, they kind of use triangles and they use black, a lot of black in that shirt. Whereas obviously we're trying to use the Irish colours, and we're using something that's and this is obviously in no way a criticism of the RFU, I don't mean it that way. They were using some sort of triangular patterns, geometric shapes and stuff. We're using basically the Irish landscape. So although on the face of it, it may seem like there's some similarities there, it's absolutely not. And we weren't in any way inspired by what they did or anything like that. We took it at face value, as I said, on trying to capture that feeling, I suppose, that the Irish diaspora or even people who live here who feel when they see Ireland from above as they fly back into the country and see that kind of unique 40 shades of green landscape.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely shirt, and I'm sure it'll be well received as well. And we might just lash it up there for viewers to have another look at it as well before we wrap. It's a nice piece of kit. There we go. And you'll be able to get your hands on it, Johnny, I presume. Available, what if people want to get their hands on it, when is it available? Is it good to go?
Yeah, it's available from 9 o'clock this morning on faishop.com and in Elvery Sports. So that's where it will be available for most people to go out and see it. And as I said, it'll be worn for the first time by the men against Belgium and the women against Sweden. And the jersey, I was talking to the producers there yesterday. So what I'm going to do, we mocked up a jersey there, the very first jersey. It was the original sample that came in, which is kind of hanging up behind me there. We stuck a 22 on the front of that, the sleeve badges on, and it actually has the fixture for Ukraine, which is slated for the 4th of June. Now, obviously, as it stands, nobody knows whether that fixture will go ahead or not. Obviously, everybody hoping that it will. But I'm going to raffle that jersey effectively. I'm just going to do it through my own Twitter, which is at Johnny Courtenay. I'm going to stick that up now in a few minutes, and I'm going to try and do a fundraiser for the Red Cross for Ukraine. So we appreciate any bids or anybody who might want to bid on that shirt, which will be a unique piece of kit as the first off the production line, so to speak.
That's a brilliant gesture, Johnny. As you say, people can go onto your Twitter handle, and the Red Cross in Ukraine that money will be going directly into helping people affected by the attack on the country. And it's, as Johnny said, it is a lovely jersey. It's an extra special piece of kit for the reasons that Johnny has mentioned. We're going to put your Twitter handle off our own social media account so people can easily access it, and I presume you'll put some sort of a time limit on it, but we'd like people to jump on there, get involved, make a bid way over the odds. The money is going to an amazing cause, so get involved with it. And as Johnny said, at Johnny Courtenay on Twitter is the place to go. We will put that link up on our own Twitter account. Johnny Courtenay, Managing Director at GAA Sports, thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Good man. That's Johnny Courtenay, and it's a brand new jersey, and he said it's available just in the last 10 or 12 minutes. So that is that. It's 13 minutes past 9. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of the morning. The football kick-off with Sky will be coming your way in just over an hour's time. Ger and friends marking your card for the fixtures over the weekend. Emmanuel Petit will be the subject of OTB Gold from 1 o'clock. Live Friday night racing 3 o'clock this afternoon on our social channels. Mark Quigley, League of Ireland legend, from Team 33 at 4. At 6, the Life and Times of Johnny Kilban, and then at 7, Off the Ball will be live on your radio. Right, up next this morning, it's a live crappy quiz.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Six Nations on OTB.
Can you come on and talk about Ireland's attack shape? It's really exciting. I don't remember if we getting that call 15 years ago.
It's spinning! It's spinning!
Gone on it! I've never seen a team like Ireland before.
Excuse me? That's a bit offensive to us because we're Welsh. You could just keep your own opinion to yourself.
The Six Nations on OTB. Don't miss a moment of the action. Subscribe to the OTB Rugby podcast feed now.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB
AM with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Chris Bond.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday, we pit three of Team Off the Ball up against each other in our no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant is one hot takeaway from moving on to the Kildare Wikipedia list of notable people. Move over, St. Bridget. Your ice-cold opinions on Ralph Rangnick are finally going to see you shunted. Give it up for Ger Gilroy.
Hey, hello, Owen. How are you? It's funny.
Very well.
You lost it already in the intro, but go on.
I lost what in the intro?
Well, you were already smugly smiling away at your own gags. It's very endearing, Owen.
Oh, sorry about that. Our next contestant, meanwhile, has the list of notable Kildare people etched into his mind like Arya Stark. One by one, he will destroy them as he continues his hateful path of destruction through Ireland's most inoffensive county. Give it up for Adrian, who's your daddy Barry.
That'd be another good Mount Rushmore. What is Ireland's reverse order? Ireland's most inoffensive county. Leitrim, I'd say, is top of the list. Is it? Nobody has a bad word to say about Leitrim.
Does anybody have a good word?
Yeah, plenty.
I'm enjoying Owen's sort of detachment from the quiz in any way, shape or form.
Yeah, you're phoning this in.
Not here in spirit or body.
Our last contestant today is the Ross Kemp of Team OTB, the Jason Statham of Team OTB, the John Joe Shelby of Team OTB. That's right, these people all share a love of football. Give it up for Phil the Power Egan.
Yeah, just list all the bald men.
You're very welcome. As ever, the format is the... What?
Carry on.
I can't. All I can see is Phil on my screen here. I can't see the two lads at the table. But I hope you're having a good time. The format is a classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on a range of themes. Then it's onto the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast the crappy quiz on otbsports.com or on the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to click the thumbs up. And if you have any questions, you can send them in via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. Round one is the boring questions round. It is never multiple choice. Sure. Can you name the most recent non-Irish person to win top jockey or top trainer at the Cheltenham Festival?
It's a good question.
From the host.
I'm going to say...
It's you tonight from the host, Friday Night Racing.
I'm going to say, yeah, but it's Irish racing that we cover. So I'm going to say Paul Nicholls.
Not correct. Nicky Henderson was the last trainer. Nico de Boinville, the last jockey. So either of those would have done. Adrian, question one for you. What is the name of the trophy that is handed out to the winner of the Ireland and England Six Nations match every year?
The Six Nations match. So Mr. Rugby with his wine and cheese. Possibly the greatest answer to a rugby question of all time.
Oh, it's going to be something wanky.
Oh, Someone's going to have to beat that.
He said swanky, didn't he?
He did.
I don't think WA. I don't think that word is
Oh, it's beepable.
Come on, what are you thinking?
Yeah, come on.
It's going to be like...
Spit it out. It's 18 minutes past 9. We want to get out of here by 9:30.
I'm going to go with Bill Bowman's arse trophy.
The Millennium Trophy.
The Millennium Trophy is correct.
Well, like I said,
I mean, come on, it's pretty. It's that piece of wood.
Absolutely wanky.
Phil.
They named a stadium after it.
And then renamed it.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about Bill Bowman's arse or the Millennium Trophy there for a second. Phil, can you name the 3 clubs with the longest current stints in the top flight of Scottish football?
That is.
I'd already started
right?
going through. I started going through the Premier League clubs, but Scottish football. So the longest stints. Okay, I'm going to say Celtic.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Aberdeen.
Yeah. One more.
That's pretty impressive.
Okay,
Who are the Premier League teams?
It's not. Okay, Hibs. No, they went down. Hearts have been down as well. Kilmarnock?
No. Motherwell.
Mother of...
It's a great effort.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Hit the post. Who are the Premier League? It's
Everton.
Well, Everton have never been relegated until this season.
Arsenal.
Arsenal and...
I don't know. Is it Liverpool?
I presume it's Liverpool, yeah. Because United obviously went down.
Yeah.
Liverpool were down in the 60s.
Oh, so there could be somebody else. It's unlikely though. West Ham went down.
Put that in as a question for you, Ger, next week. Round 2 is the Champions League Stadia round. Shout out once again to Rory Dillon, who sent in this round, who sent in a different round a couple of weeks ago, and we finally found room for one of these rounds as well that we had to shunt out last week. So Rory Dillon, thank you for all the questions you sent in. Ger, question 2 for you. This year's Champions League final has been moved away from St. Petersburg, but what is the name of that stadium that it was moved away from?
Ooh. The Luzhniki.
No. Anyone?
Well, I mean, it's been renamed to the Gazprom Stadium.
Yeah, Gazprom Arena. Adrian, what is the name of Atletico Madrid's stadium? And I was told to give this question to you.
Come on.
I don't know why you were told to give me that question.
I've been in that one.
Slightly bizarre.
Come on.
Yeah, Ger's been in it.
Oh, I was only...
I'm going to know it.
That's why. The Atletico Madrid our stadium.
Yeah.
Like, if... yeah.
Phil Bowman's.
If in doubt, go with the Allianz Arena.
What?
There's like 14 of them. Statistically around Europe.
Okay, interesting. It's the Wanda Metropolitano Stadium.
Of course it is.
You knew that. Phil, only 2 clubs have won a Champions League title in their home country. Name one.
Oh.
This isn't a stadium question.
It's also a lot easier. It's basically another multiple choice.
Take that up with Rory Dillon.
Come on, Rory. God's sake. Never multiple choice.
God, it would have been a lot easier if Bayern had beaten Chelsea in 2012.
Nathan Murphy style, sort of.
Yeah.
Here's everything I know. Good man.
Yeah.
How long are we putting a timer on this one? Like a 30 seconds?
Sorry, so two clubs have won in their own country.
Yeah. Can you give me one of them, please, quickly? Put us out of our misery.
We're at 35 seconds now. I mean, come on.
I think we'll have to give him a thanks for coming in.
I'm struggling here. Mine's gone blank. Put me out of
Pass.
Yeah.
Oof.
Phil Egan, passing on questions.
I've never.
Man United.
No, Borussia Dortmund in Munich in '97 and Juventus won in 1996 in Rome.
Ah, yeah.
Wow. Jeez, I don't think I've ever seen that before, Phil.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I've realised we've got to get out of here, so...
Well, we should acknowledge. No, let's linger on that.
Yeah, I was only wasting people's time.
Round 3 is...
Would you have worked it out eventually?
I was trying to go through back, but I forgot. Well, I remember, obviously, Dortmund winning, but I didn't remember where it was.
Yeah. It was in the Olympic Stadium, wasn't it? No, it wasn't.
The Allianz Arena.
You're saying it was in Munich, right? So obviously it wasn't the Olympic Stadium. I have a vague recollection of it looking like the Olympic Stadium, but in Berlin, which obviously it wasn't. So there you go.
Round 3 is the Pass the Parcel of Doom round. The intro of this has been criticised as being too long, so go back to last week's Crappy Quiz or the one before.
It was the week before.
Rules.
I mean, the last week you ran through this and then blame me for it. Go on.
Sure. Question 3 is for you to start off. Can you name an Ireland rugby player with 50 caps or more?
50 caps or more. Brian O'Driscoll.
Is correct. It goes to, who will you go to next, Adrian?
Paul O'Connell.
Yeah. Phil.
Cian Healy.
Yeah.
Ron O'Gara. Yes.
Yeah, that's obviously correct.
That's ludicrous.
I'm controlling F on my doc here just to knock them off. So we'll talk amongst. Oh, sorry. Who will you go to next?
Adrian.
Malcolm O'Kelly.
Malcolm O'Kelly is probably correct.
Ah, come on.
It is. He's got 90.
He definitely has, but I mean, if you're not going to.
92.
Of course he has.
Phil.
John Hayes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Conor Murray.
Conor Murray.
This is crazy.
He's on his computer. He's on his computer every week.
I'm doing
every
the same thing you are.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. You got a pen and paper. You got a pen and paper beside you.
Move on.
Come on, Adrian.
Stringer.
Look, he's
I'm waiting for
Googled
you.
it.
I'm waiting for you, Owen.
What do you mean waiting for me? Keep going. Phil.
Johnny Sexton.
Yeah.
Peter O'Mahony.
Peter O'Mahony.
Correct.
77 caps for Peter O'Mahony.
Jamie Heaslip.
Jamie Heaslip.
Keith Earls.
Keith Earls.
Rory Best.
Rory Best, yeah, 123 caps. Adrian.
Gordon Darcy.
Gordon Darcy, yeah.
Rob Carney.
Rob Carney. Correct, 95. Sure.
Wow.
Donegal O'Callaghan.
Yeah, correct, 94 caps. We've got all of the top 14 caps winners of Ireland at this point.
David Humphreys.
Balls, that was me next.
Correct, 72 caps for David Humphreys. Come on. Load more to go.
David Wallace.
Correct. In 20th place. Back to Ger.
Simon Easterby.
Yeah, correct.
Shane Horgan.
Correct.
Gervin Dempsey.
Gervin Dempsey is correct. A few more obvious ones before it starts getting tricky, lads.
This one's tricky. Keith Wood.
Correct. 58.
Oh, good man, Keith.
Devon Toner.
He's Googling this.
Get on with it.
Correct. 70 caps for Devon Toner. Phil.
Jerry Flannery.
Not correct. No Jerry Flannery.
Sorry.
Phil is out. Back to Ger.
I am going to say.
Oh my God, look at apps. Of course, I can think of them all now.
Michael Bradley.
Michael Bradley is not correct.
That was a bit out there, Ger.
That was a bit out there. The remaining ones that you didn't get.
Aki, I would have gone Aki, Henshaw, Foley after that.
When you said Michael, I was like, Mike Ross.
Well, you're just lucky by your jaw, Adrian, because you would have got knocked out straight away.
Good man. That's the way to do it.
Aki is not there. The remaining ones in this
James Ryan.
order of caps. Jordan Murphy with 72, Sean Cronin with 72, Owen Redden, Kevin Maggs, Andrew Trimble, Mike
Sean
Gibson,
Cronin, your
Tommy
buddy.
Bowe, Marcus Horan, Ian Henderson, Willie John McBride, Anthony Foley, Dennis Hickey, Fergus Slattery, Mike Ross, Paddy Johns, Philip Orr, Dennis Leamy, Brendan Mullen, Sean O'Brien, Jack McGrath, Tom Kiernan, The Claw, Donald Lenihan, Robbie Henshaw, Moss Keaton, Tyke Furlong, and CJ Stander.
CJ's 50th.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Okay.
James Ryan hasn't got 50. Are you sure? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Irrelevant now, lads. Point in the
Adrian,
bag.
you're off the mark. first person to score a point in this week's quiz. The rest of these past passes won't be as long, mercifully. Adrian, can you lead us off on this one? Can you name a driver on the grid for this year's Formula 1 season?
No.
Valtteri Bottas.
Correct. What did you call him last time? Valtteri?
Yeah, well, he's been called several things on this item.
Next up is Phil.
Sebastian Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel is correct.
Hamilton.
Yeah, he certainly drives Formula 1 cars.
English guy, young fella, George. Mick Schumacher.
Mick Schumacher is correct.
Mickey Schumacher, hi.
Phil.
Max Verstappen.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm out.
You can't think of any more?
I can't.
I hope he hasn't already been said.
Adrian.
Sebastian Vettel.
He has been said. You're out. Phil gets the point. That was a
Who's
gimme.
the George? What's his name?
Are you thinking of Lando Norris?
Russell.
Lando Norris.
No, you're thinking George Russell, maybe.
George Russell, is he a driver? Sure.
Yeah, he's an English guy. Alex Albon, Fernando Alonso, Pierre Gasly, Nicholas Latifi, Charles Leclerc, Kevin Magnussen, Lando Norris, Esteban Ocon, Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, and Guan Yu Zhu.
Oh, I should have got the Spanish dude. What's his name?
Alonso.
Yes.
He's a bit like Allianz Arena. If in doubt, say Alonso, and you'd be.
There was like that whole decade he retired and then came back.
Phil Egan.
Heinz-Harald Frentzen. I mean, I could have done those.
Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Could have done the
Phil,
90s.
Finest.
Bertrand Gachot.
Can you name a team that has ever won the UEFA Cup or the Europa League?
Oh, for God's sake.
UEFA, or so we'll go Liverpool.
Liverpool is correct. We're going to Ger next.
Sevilla.
Yep.
Porto.
Correct.
Villarreal.
Correct. Yeah. Sure.
Roma.
Roma is not there. No, Roma have not won the Europa League.
Didn't Chelsea win it one year?
Is that your answer?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, correct.
No. Oh.
It is.
Yeah.
Rafa.
Yeah. Zenit.
I thought you were confusing
Zenit.
with the Fairs Cup.
Adrian.
Go with what did you say earlier, Phil? What German team did you say?
No, you can't. Don't tell.
Come on. There's loads left.
I actually didn't say.
Did you not? Come on. Dortmund.
Dortmund is correct, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Manchester United.
United, yeah, have won it, yeah.
When did Dortmund win it?
I don't know, but did they play in their home country, I wonder?
Juventus win it?
They did. Phil?
See, it can be UEFA and Europa League.
Yeah.
Galatasaray.
Correct. Adrian?
Atletico.
Yes, that's correct. Going strong here.
Think right.
They won the UEFA Cup in 1993 and 2002, Dortmund.
Inter Milan.
Is correct. Adrian.
I'll go with Lazio win it.
No. Phil gets the point. The remaining teams were Ajax, Anderlecht, Bayer Leverkusen, CSKA Moscow, Eintracht Frankfurt, Feyenoord, Gothenburg, Ipswich, Napoli, Parma, PSV, Real Madrid, Schalke, Shakhtar, Tottenham, and Valencia.
I thought about it down and I was doubting myself.
Another classic renewal of the Pass the Parcel of Doom round. I'm sure you'll agree. It is Phil 2, Adrian 1, Ger 0. You're doing very well. Round 4 is the Fun Free Magic Number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number spot on. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. And I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So, if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of games Italy have ever won in the Six Nations. Shout out once again to Greg Hall for getting in touch with that one. Plus the number of games Stephen Kenny has won so far as Ireland manager. Plus the number of times Ireland have beaten England this century in Twickenham. Plus the number of Premier League goals that Cristiano Ronaldo has scored this season. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So the total number of games Italy have ever won in the Six Nations, the number of games Stephen Kenny has won in his time as Republic of Ireland manager, the number of times Ireland has beaten England this century at Twickenham, and the number of Premier League goals Cristiano Ronaldo has scored this season. Phil got the pen down. He's confident. That's it looking like right now, but
I've got my pen down. Don't worry about that.
Use your pen for
Sure,
this round.
what have you got?
17.
17. Adrian?
27.
27. Phil?
21.
Adrian gets 2 points. Phil gets 1 point. The answer is 29.
Have it.
So, let's go through these.
Wow, lads. That's all I can say. Wow.
Italy have won 12 Six Nations games.
What?
Stephen Kenny has won 4.
Italy have not won
Republic of
12
Ireland
Six Nations games, have they?
I had 7.
I had 2.
I had 5, to be fair. I've something.
So hang on,
wrong
wait,
in Denmark.
I mean, they would occasionally. Oh, they beat France once, didn't
Be
they?
a good pass the parcel round.
Scots.
The teams Italy have
They've
beaten.
beaten Welsh a couple.
They
They
beat
beat
us
Welsh a couple
once.
of times. Yeah.
Did they beat the Welsh?
I think they beat
more
them a
than
couple of
once.
times.
Ah, that's what you
know
do
the
in Wales.
Sure, you know the Welsh.
I do know the Welsh. So sorry.
Yeah, the
What's
12
the
wins in total.
12
The
wins.
gods- Yeah.
And the
12
answer
wins
is
in total.
27. I was 10 out.
29.
I got it. All the rest
Stephen
of
Kenny's
them.
won 4 matches. England have been beaten 4 times by Ireland in the 20th century, and Ronaldo has scored 9 goals this Premier League season. We are on to the final. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys.
Starting in reverse
I
order.
gotta go.
obviously.
Nothing in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round.
Starting in
Before you
reverse
get-
order, obviously.
No, it's
Yeah.
going to be Adrian,
No,
then
of
course
Phil,
it is.
then Ger.
No.
Adrian and Phil are tied on 3 points, but I feel more sorry for Adrian, so he's going to go first.
I'd nearly
Everyone's
rather
just-
put Phil in, but go on. We might as well. Let's take it on.
This is ridiculous. You
Take
feel
it
sorry
on.
for him.
If you get a question correct, I'll ask you another question. I'll keep asking you questions until you get one wrong, and then we'll move on to the next person. And your wrong answer means a deduction of 1 point. So, as I say, Adrian, Phil, Ger is the order. Adrian, are you ready?
I am.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Who is the 2021 US Open Women's Champion?
Serena.
Emma Raducanu.
No, Raducanu. Joey Endo played for what country, Phil?
Cameroon.
Correct. What is the third tier of the hurling championship called?
Larry Marr.
No, it's Christy Ring. In what country is Jack Wilshere's new club based, Ger?
Iceland.
No, Denmark. What championship club does Jimmy Dunn play for, Adrian?
Wigan.
No, QPR. True or false, Meath Hill will play in the Meath Senior Football Championship in 2022, Phil?
Has to be false.
Correct. Name the only inter-county GAA ground in the country named after a woman.
Well, depending on what
Sligo.
YouTube clip you're looking at.
What's it called?
Markovich Park.
Correct. Just about, Phil. I could have said rapid fire doesn't win it for you, but that is the winning question. If you got that wrong, you wouldn't have won it. It would have been a tie break. But fortunately for you,
hang
Phil.
on a second. He's given an answer after the buzzer.
Yeah, but Magnus
Like long after the buzzer. Long after the buzzer.
Sorry, actually, no.
Here.
Sorry, no. Actually, he actually had it sewn up
That's what I
well before that. Yeah, I misread my.
I was going to make a case there on the basis of trying to, elbow my way.
Phil Egan, congratulations.
Good man, Phil.
What do you have to say for yourself?
That's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, well, congratulations, Phil. Great speech. Adrian, sure, thank you for taking
Thanks for
part.
coming in. Good man.
OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. This weekend on Off the Ball, we are live from 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon with a specially extended show as we bring you all the football, a Cheltenham Saturday panel, and everything from England, Ireland, and the Six Nations on air till 7 o'clock. And then Sunday is 1 to 7 as well. Live Premier League commentary of Chelsea against Newcastle and Arsenal against Leicester. Right now on OTB AM, we're leaving you with Nathan and Philippe Auclair from Thursday night's football show, Talking Chelsea.
Eventful day that's continuing on the pitch because they're currently in action in the Premier League. Chelsea lead Norwich by 2-1. Trevor Chalobah and Mason Mount scored early for Chelsea, but Timo Pukki's just pulled one back from the penalty spot. There is around 13 minutes to go on that one. And Newcastle have come from behind to lead Southampton by 2-1. Wolves 3-0 up against Watford. That one 3-0 after just 20 minutes. And still at Elland Road, Aston Villa lead Leeds by 1-0. That one started 15 minutes after the other games. And in Europe, in the Europa League, well, earlier Sevilla beat West Ham by 1-0. Rangers 2-0 up at half time against Crvena Zvezda, or Red Star Belgrade as we like to know them. And in the round of 16 of the Europa Conference League, Leicester City 1-0 up in the second half against Rennes. We got a lot of football coverage coming your way over the next couple of days. Tomorrow night at 10 o'clock on Twitter Spaces, it'll be the latest League of Ireland late night. You can join myself, Johnny and Shane Keegan as we reflect on all the evening's League of Ireland games, including that big Dublin derby sold out at Tallaght Stadium between Shamrock Rovers and Bohemians. Saturday, John will be here with Dan and Johnny to run you through all the day's football. And then on Sunday, we have a double header from the Premier League. Chelsea against Newcastle from 2 o'clock. Richie will be alongside Brian Kerr for that one. And then it's Arsenal against Leicester City from the Emirates, which myself and Kenny Cunningham will bring you. Now, Philippe Auclair is on the line. Evening, Philippe.
Good evening to you.
It has been a quite remarkable day for Chelsea following the news this morning that the UK government have placed sanctions on Roman Abramovich for his ties with Vladimir Putin. He's been in charge since 2003, had been attempting to sell the club in recent days, but that has been halted by the UK government, who has frozen his assets, including the sale of Chelsea. I might just run down what it all means. Well, firstly, they are playing tonight, so Chelsea have been given a special licence to continue playing games in both the Premier League and the Women's Super League, and they can continue to pay their players and staff. However, only season ticket holders are going to be allowed 10 games at Stamford Bridge. They can't sell any more tickets to home matches. They aren't allowed to sell any merchandise, so the club store has been shut immediately. They aren't allowed to buy or sell players, not that you can right now anyway, so effectively for the moment they're under a transfer ban. The government has also set a limit of €20,000 per team per match to travel to and from matches, which would be way below what a club of Chelsea's side would be used to. And also their main shirt sponsor, 3, has suspended their partnership and want their logo taking off the team's jersey. Philippe, I think everybody had a sharp intake of breath when this news came this morning, mainly because it did look as though the UK government weren't going to sanction Roman Abramovich, certainly not at this moment in time. What changed?
Very good question. I do not have a straight answer for you to that. I'm still waiting to see how this is going to pan out in the end, because I'm hearing rumours that this evening that it might be possible for the club to be sold if the proceeds didn't go directly to Roman Abramovich, so which obviously would change the picture slightly. It seems that there have been quite strangely negotiations going on between the Chelsea hierarchy and the government, the British government, this afternoon and this evening, which I can only imagine are intended to soften the blow of the sanctions on the club. But given that the club is 100% owned by Roman Abramovich, I find that rather bizarre. I also find it interesting, like the mayor of London as well has just gone on social media saying, showing some kind of generosity of spirit towards Chelsea Football Club, which might not have been shown necessarily to other clubs in the past, which were going into difficulties. But for some reason, Chelsea is a very big one. A very big club, huge support. So I would be quite careful before I would. At the beginning, I was like you. I was stunned because everybody had the impression, certainly here in London and in England, that the Boris Johnson's government was slightly dragging his feet when it came to sanctions against individuals. So yes, it came as a real surprise. If the sanctions were to be applied as drastically as we are led to believe, it's quite clear that this could spell the end for the club, and I think that's part of the problem that we have at the moment to try and gauge exactly what's going to happen, because given the level of debt of the club, the debt which is owed to Roman Abramovich, given the amount of losses that the club has suffered over this 19 years, almost 19 years of ownership, which is something close to £900 million, which is rather a lot of money. Given the fact that the club has only been able to function as it has thanks to its owner pumping it money year after year after year, given the fact that the stadium cannot be really extended or expanded, given all these facts, you think, my goodness, Chelsea could actually go under. I in a way, it's one of those things where you wonder if, given the dimension of the club in London and elsewhere, you wonder if some kind of solution, inverted commas, is not going to be found to this. But at the moment, if the sanctions are applied fully, I can't see how the club can survive. I really can't.
We always look at football clubs as almost being too big to fail, and Chelsea are the current world club champions. They're the current European champions.
European champions, yes.
They are one of the biggest clubs in world football, but we are living in extraordinary times over the past fortnight. We are living in war times, and the statement by the British government this morning, believing that Roman Abramovich has a close relationship for decades with Russia's President Vladimir Putin.
Not believing, stating. It's a fact. We can now say it. We don't have to be fearful of lawyers anymore, my friends. We can state it now.
So now
I think we've got to be very clear about this. This is something which has been said by the British government, and we should, enough of this, honestly. I'm sorry if I sound angry. I feel very, very angry actually today, because many of my friends, many of other journalists have been put in impossible situations when they tried to talk about this club, its owner and its relationship with the Kremlin. And today, what they have said all along has been said by the British government, black and white. It's there. So we can say it. We can obviously discuss how deep this relationship between Abramovich and Putin was. We can discuss that. We have to let people say what they want to say about it. We can let them say even that's unfair, that's unjust, whatever. We can say that. But on the other hand, we can also say there was a relationship, a very close relationship, and that's the reason why the British government has decided to take this action. So we can say that now. That had changed.
The way that the Chelsea go about getting through this over the coming weeks will be, I assume, to point to their status as a club and their success and their importance as an institution to English football, to English life, but also the impact this will have on the ordinary staff members. So we all look at Chelsea and see Thomas Tuchel and see some of the best players in the world, but there are hundreds of people employed by a football club who are not on millions of pounds per year, who will be affected by this. Do you suspect that will be a factor in, and is that a factor already, do you think, in hearing the Mayor of London come out, and how quickly maybe a get-out clause is coming into play for Chelsea?
I don't know about that, to be honest. This generosity of spirit hasn't been shown to clubs like Coventry City, Portsmouth, Wimbledon, many others I can think of, York City, Chester, which went through appalling times and sometimes had to die to be reborn. But there is, of course, the Chelsea support is huge. And I know many people at Chelsea Football Club and many people there whom I consider to be very good friends. And these people were there before Abramovich, and I sincerely hope they will be there if he goes after him. I think we can make the distinction here between a club that was created in 1905 by Gus Mears, and which we all hope will carry on existing for a very long time, and a particular regime which has been put in place in 2003, brought unprecedented success to the club. Let's not forget that, 19 major trophies, and which now looks to be at an end. And obviously, nobody in their right mind would want the club to fail like this. We also got to think about the people who actually own the ground, or the freehold of the ground on which Stamford Bridge is built, who are fans. And do you want them to be punished? They were fans before, they owned this club before, and we all hope that they're going to be able to carry on. But this is again, we have to make the distinction between a particular incarnation of the club and the actual soul and spirit of the club, which is the property of all Chelsea supporters. At the moment, it's so fluid. The situation is so fluid. To start with, we had the impression, honestly, when I first read this statement and I looked into the detail of the measures taken by the British government, I thought there is absolutely no way Chelsea Football Club can survive. No way. And now, as the hours have passed and you start to take a little bit, you take a deep breath in and you think, it's not the fact that the club is too big not to survive, to be dealt, to be given a fatal blow. What obviously is meant is what they want to give a fatal blow to is the ownership of Roman Abramovich. And then it's what happens afterwards which matters. So there might be a way out by which Roman Abramovich simply decides to walk away and consent to the sale. But basically, it would be almost like a nationalisation of Chelsea Football Club, if you think about it.
The news over the last couple of hours seems to be that the brokers who are in charge of the sale are putting a pause on it for 24, 48 hours until they talk to the British government and
clarification,
try and get that clarification and figure out how they can move forward. But it does feel as though a large part of being able to move forward depends on what you just said, on whether Roman Abramovich is able and willing to walk away from that massive debt that he is owed by the club. That when he talks about his love for the club, and when he was looking at establishing a charity for victims, now whether there were victims in Ukraine or victims in Russia wasn't quite clear, but does that love extend while under sanctions from the UK government? Does that love remain where he is willing to step away and just give up 1.5 billion for the good of Chelsea and their supporters? And that's a question that's probably still quite hard to answer.
It is very hard to answer, and it's more than 1.5 billion because the value of the club is bigger than that. I mean, there have been various valuations. The valuation that had been put by Chelsea themselves, by Abramovich and his people to start with, which was around 4 billion, is way off the mark. And given the state of the club, the circumstances, which are rather unusual. Again, the situation regarding the ownership of the freehold, the fact that Stamford Bridge cannot be really expanded as well, which means it has to remain with a very small, relatively small ground compared to other Premier League clubs. You put all that and you come to a figure which is about around £2 billion, which is an awful lot of money, by the way. Let's not forget that Roman Abramovich bought this club for 140 million on the 1st of July 2003, and at the time it was the biggest sale ever made of an English football club. How time flies and how things change, don't they? So it would be a possibility. I don't put it necessarily past him. That would still leave him with a fortune of something like 7 billion. I mean, actually, his fortune at the moment is, estimated at 9 billion. So even if you imagine that he would take a 2 billion hit, that would still leave him with 7 billion, not exactly something to cry about. So he could do that if he values the club as much as he does. Why couldn't he do that? Possibly. I honestly, at this point in time, I do not know. I do get the feeling, though, and it's perhaps just a feeling, that there are moves behind the scenes to try and prevent the kind of, I was going to say, apologies for the term, nuclear scenario. And that people want to come to a sanction, a punishment, which will hit Mr. Abramovich, but which will not endanger the future of the club. But this being said, you have to think of if Chelsea were to find somehow another owner, a new owner, I don't think that you would find another owner who would be willing to put in the kind of money, the kind of investment that Roman Abramovich has put in the club since 2003. I was looking, for example, at the first transfer market of Chelsea in 2003, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It's not in question of the money, but I had almost forgotten that Damien Duff arrived, Joe Cole, Claude Makelele, Hernan Crespo, Juan Sebastian Veron, and we can carry on like that, Scott Parker, and you think this has never happened before or since. You would not find another owner like that. No way. So therefore, the Chelsea that we know who has built this incredible collection of trophies over 18 years, that I think is gone. There will have to be a change of model, whatever happens. There will have to be a change of model. And as to the impact it's going to have on this current season, again, it's very difficult to tell. It doesn't seem to be impacting the players and the manager at the moment. You probably can give us an update on the score at Norwich. Also, what are going to be, one thing in particular which I found of great interest and partly worrying for Chelsea is the fact that the British government made it very clear that broadcasting rights would be still be paid to Chelsea, but the money would be frozen to make sure that it doesn't benefit Mr. Abramovich in any shape or form. As long as he's the 100% shareholder, if the money goes into the club's account, it benefits him. So I don't quite know how they work about that, but what I do know is that the TV revenue from Chelsea in 2020-2021 was, I think, £276 million out of a 470 million pounds turnover, which means that broadcasting rights were 69% of the total turnover of the club. Now, if you phrase this, how are you going to pay your players? How are you going to pay your staff? I can't see that happening. So there's going to be, and at the same time, you have, interestingly, a block on transfers, on sales and purchases. How that works, by the way, with the transfer market, the transfer system, FIFA, UEFA, and the rest, I don't know. Is UEFA going to take some sanctions? UEFA kicked out Spartak Moscow. UEFA hasn't kicked out Chelsea from the Champions League. They still have a second leg to play against Lille. Are other clubs going to say something? Have you noticed as well the incredible silence of the Premier League on this?
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because there's a feeling that this was very much belated from the UK government in imposing sanctions on Roman Abramovich. But the Premier League silence, yet again, and we shouldn't be surprised considering it's only a matter of months since Saudi Arabia was able to invest in the way they were in Newcastle, that the Premier League were more than happy, and it feels would have been more than happy if the UK government had done nothing and sat there for another month, for another 2 months, that Roman Abramovich would have been able to pick his moment of selling Chelsea and the Premier League would have had no issue with it, no matter what.
Absolutely. I think that is the thing. It took everybody by surprise, including the people at the Premier League, who are in a very delicate situation indeed. But it's quite astonishing that there has been no communication, no statement yet, after such a epochal decision by the British government. I think the problem is that they are in a genuine pickle themselves in terms of the way that the Premier League has been consistently looking away when it has to make decisions about whether to allow this person or that state or this fund taking over. I was actually looking, I was wondering what the reaction had been in 2003 when Roman Abramovich bought the club from Ken Bates. And at the time, there was only one person who genuinely said, I'm not too sure about this. It was the former Minister of Sport, Tony Banks, himself a Chelsea fan, who said, I'm not too sure it's a good idea to sell football clubs to people we know nothing about. It's a message which unfortunately has got lost over the years, and in particular at Premier League level. And the fact that, please confirm that, but Chelsea's playing Newcastle this weekend. Well, that is some game, isn't it? Between Roman Abramovich's future ex-club and Saudi Arabia United. That is something. If you wanted an illustration of what needs to be addressed, the issues which need to be addressed in English football, you have it in a nutshell, in 90 minutes. Now, I would like as well, and I don't know how you feel about that, but the questions which are asked of Thomas Tuchel and will be asked of him again and again and again, as long as the manager of Chelsea and the situation hasn't been resolved, to also be asked of Eddie Howe when he next confronts the press.
Eddie Howe, from watching some of his press conferences, has been asked quite a few questions about Saudi Arabia, and has brushed him aside, that he's here to talk about football matters. Likewise with Thomas Tuchel, and I'm sure those questions are going to come again at Carrow Road tonight. And I know Chelsea are trying to work press conferences that if you're not in Carrow Road tonight, you can't ask questions. There'll be no pre-match press conference ahead of Newcastle, so I don't know how much we'll get from Thomas Tuchel. Do you think Thomas?
He's been quite. I must say, Thomas Tuchel has been at times quite frank. Remember his reaction when he was asked about the Chelsea supporters singing Roman Abramovich's name during the minute of applause for Ukraine at Burnley. I thought he actually behaved, I think, in the proper manner. He was very frank and direct about that. He hasn't shied away like Eddie Howe has. That's personal opinion, of course, but I think there has been a slight difference of treatment as well between the two managers. But it's a question. If you're in football and you take the money, I mean, the question was asked. You probably saw that. The question was asked to Pep Guardiola what he felt about Thomas Tuchel, and I thought the answer was extraordinary, because obviously the question can also be asked of Pep Guardiola. You're working for Sheikh Mansour. How do you feel about that?
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.